I'll unmute my mic and then maybe you're going to hear me. Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word. Add to some 2023 British Grand Prix reaction. Wow, it works so much better when you unmute your mic. What a fantastic start to this stream. Hope you're all well. Hello again if you were with me yesterday afternoon. Twice in 2 days for a live stream. It's very concerning. We must stop this. We've got to stop meeting like this. Anyway, I've asked you to rate the race in chat. You've all gone so far, not everybody, but 53% saying it was a good race. And I sort of agree. I would say pre-safety car, that was okay. But it definitely needed the safety car for me to give that a good, if that makes sense. So pre-safety car, somewhere around 5, 6-ish. I think post-safety car, 7. Maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of hype around because obviously Lando Norris on the podium, so I think a lot of people are very excited for that as well, which rightly so. We can enjoy that, and the fact he got to lead the race. But I think once Verstappen got out in front, I know, shocking, he kind of, it all settled down, didn't it? And that was that really, and it looked like it was heading to a bit of a not a snooze fest, because there was always the intrigue of rain and there's always stuff happening through the field, but not one of the most thrilling races we were going to see. But then the safety car came out and really gave us a great sprint to the finish. I'll go with that one. A sprint to the finish. I know you hate sprints, some of you, but there you go. You got a sprint race today. Absolutely. I mean, I love Silverstone anyway. Great track. Often see great racing there. I enjoyed that. But Max Verstappen, unbelievably, I was looking at the stats. So it's 11 in a row for Red Bull, which equals the record set by McLaren in 1988. It is his 6th in a row. It's the 10 out of 10 for Red Bull in the season. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone's got the chance to just double check this for me, but from the last 21 races, I believe Red Bull have only lost one, and that was to Mercedes in Brazil last year. That is unbelievable. That is so unbelievable. I nearly went completely northern then. That just unbelievable stuff from Red Bull. It's pure domination. It's as simple as that. And I think today it was closer between Red Bull and McLaren, and Mercedes looked a bit closer. The safety car helped to keep that gap down. It wasn't, Max Verstappen didn't disappear early on, did he? He just got a nice gap and managed that well. McLaren was sort of decent with their pace as well. It seemed legit. So things maybe are closing up at the front, but it does feel like if Red Bull want to, which I'm sure they do, they could win everything this season. It's just unreal. But anyway, that's enough of my waffle. Let's say a very good evening to Will. Hey again, Will. Thank you for joining me, mate, before you disappear to Hungary and Belgium, you swine. Did you enjoy that one?
Hello, Sean. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you, to be honest. It was an all right race before we hit the safety car, and then after that, it was a lot of fun. And as someone who enjoys sprints as much as people will have a go at me for that, yeah, no, I loved it. It was a nice watch.
Yeah, like I said, it's like it needed a safety car, didn't it, just to pep it up a little bit. But you don't really need drama, but it's nice to see some close racing. Thank you very much, Sab Mariners fan. I was going to give you a shout out today for a conversation we were having the other day, and I can't remember what it was, so I'm going to give you the shout out anyway for your super chat, and I'll give you a second one just because I wanted to for some reason, but I can't remember why. It says Norris versus Hamilton really saved the race from being perfectly average. I love that phrase, perfectly average. Also, Max continues his quest to win the constructors on his own, adding another point between himself and Mercedes. Thank you very much for your super chat and your support, mate. Really appreciate that. Actually, Max Verstappen, we'll start with Max Verstappen because that's what we do this season, isn't it? It's always starting with Max Verstappen on these. Goes 99 clear of Sergio Perez in the championship with that win today. I said at the start, Will, not his most comfortable win of the season, but even though McLaren's pace was a big surprise this weekend and it was great to see them up there with him, Mercedes weren't a million miles away either. Even with Norris leading, at no point did I think Verstappen's not going to win this. I still felt like it was, you know, you look at, how can I word this? You look at the timing tower and he's only 3.7 seconds up the road, but I don't feel like he was ever really under any major threat, especially once he got the lead. That was kind of it really, wasn't it? So, I mean, story of the season.
I think we've said it in the past as well. I don't think when Max is in the lead, he's giving it 100%. He knows he doesn't need to with the car he's got underneath him. So he can afford just to manage the gap. And especially with it being a McLaren behind, I know they showed much better pace than what we've seen for the rest of the season, at least so far. It's still a McLaren, and he knows that it's not going to provide a major threat to him. So he can afford to keep that gap where it is. And just sort of cruise over to the flag. But Yeah, a solid race from him. Obviously, a little bit of a wobble on the start, which gave us that little bit of excitement in the first 5 laps. But yeah, besides that, not a foot wrong for the Dutchman once again.
Not happy on the softs towards the end, was he? Said they didn't feel very good. Also said early on, car is pulling a bit weird, and was told it was the wind. It was quite variable, the wind, so wasn't overly happy with that. Wasn't happy with the balance of the car in the gusty conditions. Gusts apparently, I think it was Russell's engineer, said up to 35 kilometres an hour. So yeah, that's going to catch people out. So he wasn't completely comfortable out front with his car, and he wasn't happy with the tyres towards the end. But he did say the soft didn't feel good as he pulled out a 3.5-second lead in about 4 laps. So I mean, they weren't that bad, were they? But it wasn't as comfortable as it has been at times this season. But it didn't feel, like I say, like he was massively under threat. The start though, too much wheel spin off the line. He said post race they need to go away and look at why that start was so bad. That allowed Norris through, and that gave us a bit of drama and excitement early on. Very nearly lost out to Piastri. Oscar Piastri getting really ballsy on the run to Cops. I thought, oh no, Oscar, don't do it. Don't stick your wheel in there, mate. And he didn't. He stayed third. But good stuff from Verstappen. I feel kind of terrible to Verstappen fans, really, the Orange Army that might be listening, that we don't talk enough about him in these streams. But other than, again, and the funny thing is I'm repeating what I said last time, but other than repeating what I say every week about the dominance, the comfortable, even if it's not a massive gap, it still felt comfortable. Fastest lap, the win, championship lead, extends his lead over his teammate to 99 points. It's all done. There's not really much more to say. It's just one of those. We've had it with used to have this with Hamilton when he was dominating, particularly 2020. Every week he'd win more or less, and I'd come onto one of these, or it would feel like that, and I'd come onto a stream and I'd be like, well, what can I say that I didn't say last week about Lewis Hamilton? It's the same with Max Verstappen. It would have been the same during other eras of domination. How many times can you say, well, that was pretty dominant, or that was comfortable, or, oh, he's won again? There's only so many times you can say it. It's nothing against the drivers dominating. It's just, what can you say? So, unbelievable. Great stuff for him. His teammate... So, 6th place from 15th on the grid. You could argue, looking at that, not a bad recovery, but he was off at turn 1 and was wide, so that cost him some time and possibly places. I don't know if he lost places, but it will have cost him something. P11 by the end of lap 13, P10 by the end of lap 16. Pity to put the softs on around that same time. Really nice overtake, by the way, on Sainz as well, a little bit later on for P7. But the fact he was only up to 10th by lap 16, and he kind of was stuck there for quite a while. He didn't really make much progress after that. I'm not really inclined to sit here and say I'm overly impressed with that comeback. I think it's an okay comeback to come from 15th on the grid to 6th, but even if it's not as dominant a weekend for that Red Bull as we've seen in the past, I still feel like if you're in that car and you're P10 at the end of lap 16, you should be a little bit higher than 6th come the end of the race. That's just my view. I think it maybe helped out a little bit by the safety car being able to close the gap up a tad as well. Possibly brought him back into play with those tyres, but it's very difficult to get excited about 6th place when you're in a car that's won, as I say, all but one of the last 21 races.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, that stat on its own is scary, isn't it? But no, you're spot on, and yeah, Checo just again, and this time there was nothing like track limits at play. Okay, you could maybe say the weather caught him out somewhat, but everyone else was in those same conditions. He just didn't have the pace, and it was really, once again, really disappointing. Especially given how strong his start to the year appeared to be. 5 times in a row, he has not even made it into Q3 in what is, I believe, at the end of this year, going to be considered from a statistics point of view, the most dominant car in Formula One history. If they keep up the route they're going, it will be. And yeah, I don't. It's a bit like Verstappen, where we haven't got anything new to say, and it's the exact same case with Perez. The only thing is it seems his seat is safe. I don't know whether you've seen the Helmut Marko quote on German TV.
I haven't.
He said, at least this was after qualifying. It's a rough quote, but yeah, it's more or less what he said. At least he does well in the races, unlike Nick de Vries. That's the quote from Helmut Marko. to Sky Germany after qualifying. So he at least seems safe.
Yeah, I don't think he's under threat. I said it yesterday that a poll, I did a poll, and most people, I think 80% said they thought he was under threat. I don't think he is, and that kind of confirms that a bit. But I mean, the one thing I will kind of defend Perez on a little bit is that Silverstone, and I said this yesterday as well, is not the easy track to overtake on that a lot of people think it is to overtake on. Some people think it's quite a, we get quite a lot of good racing at Silverstone, and people think, oh, it's an easy track to pass on. It's really not. There's a lot of high speed corners. And a lot of not so many heavy braking zones. So I think that has to go in his favour. And the reason I say safety car helped him a little bit, by the way, is not so much that it may have hindered him with his strategy, but it put him closer to the top 5. If you remove that safety car, he's a lot further off than he ended up, is my point there. So maybe it makes it look better than it actually is. But I think, and we can argue, I think Space has just made the point in chat. I meant to say this yesterday, actually. We can argue about... I think it was... Let me just double check that, actually. Yeah, it says that at some point people will realise that the Red Bull dominance is more about Max than the car. I sort of agree in a way. Max Verstappen is making the difference in that car in the same way that Hamilton used to at Mercedes. But that car is also dominant. If you put... And they never will. They just never would. But if you put Verstappen and Hamilton in that car together, or Verstappen and Alonso, you're looking at 1-2 every race. So yeah. I have to. I agree with the point, and I want to make the point again to defend him on Silverstone being a tricky track to overtake on. I also love saying tricky track, but Verstappen does make the difference in the car, but a better driver. It's a bit. I'm going to Strollify this a little bit. Just compare Perez to Stroll. That's going to go down well. You'll get my point in a second. If he is okay in qualifying, as we saw in Austria in the sprint, if he can be on the front row or top 3 or whatever and get into Q3 and not make these mistakes on a Saturday, whether it's his fault or the team, he probably is second most races anyway. It's that Saturday that's hurt him in the last 5 races.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And yeah, I think he is just going through a rough patch. We know Checo can do it, and I think mentally that's his big issue at the moment. And I wonder if it won't take till maybe after the summer break, when he's had that kind of gap to reset, that he can finally just start to bring things back in. Obviously, the pressure of the championship is off now, so that's one thing off his shoulders. But it just keeps seeming to be getting worse for Checo at the moment.
Yeah. It's frustrating. I was keeping an eye on something in chat, sorry. But yeah, that's kind of... I'm not going to say any more on Perez, because again, we're doing it every week, and I did it yesterday, but I was going to do something really sarcastic. I'm going to try and do it unsarcastic, but I can't. Sorry if this comes across. I'm going to try my best. Here we go. So, it's really safe to say that I can't do it. It's really safe to say that his championship took a massive hit this week. No, I can't do it. No, sorry. Perez is not in this title fight. I'm sorry, Checo fans, he's not. Would I love him to be? Yes, I'd love Perez to win a world championship one day, because then I can turn around to people and say, told you so, with things that I said 5 years ago, which are irrelevant now. But there you go. But yes, good stuff, fantastic stuff from Verstappen. Not so much from Perez, although decent recovery on a difficult track to overtake on, I will say that. But I think surprise of the weekend, moving to more positives here, Will. McLaren. Now, if I'd said to you last Sunday in this stream that we'd be talking about McLaren qualifying second and third at Silverstone a week later,
I would have asked for your dealer's phone number.
Yeah, and the only reason... In some ways, you could argue the only reason Piastri doesn't get a podium is because he was unlucky with the safety car in some ways, or in a lot of ways, actually. In fact, McLaren have said that. They felt he would have been on the podium without that safety car. As you've just said, you'd have asked for my dealer's number. You would never have believed that, would you? I mean, what a turnaround. And I think, what's that other stat? I think Sky threw the stat out before I went live. I was watching their post-race. I didn't watch their actual race, but the post-race. I think they said something along the lines of, McLaren were not at any point in this season running inside the top 5, and then they've been second and fourth today, and they was Lando Norris fourth last weekend as well. So, I mean, what a turnaround. It's got to be, yeah, it could be track specific. The car does like the fast corners. It does like tracks like Silverstone and Austria, but the update has to be playing some part in this, surely.
Oh, 100%. And look at how much more Piastri was on the pace today. Now he's got not even all of the full upgrade. And I think actually that's the story that maybe should be louder. Oscar still has not got an equal car to Lando at the moment. And he was right on him throughout the entire weekend, maybe a little bit off, but pretty close. When Oscar gets all the parts, and I think they're adding even more upgrades to the car in Hungary, I don't know, they're talking about bringing the fight to Red Bull now, and I wouldn't have seen it 2 or 3 days ago. Now, I don't know. I mean, if Red Bull have decided to focus on next year, which, let's be honest, they probably should be, and McLaren are just going to see what they can get out of the rest of this year and maybe sacrifice a bit of next year as a result of that, could that be the way to go? I don't know, but yeah, really, really interesting for the McLaren boys. Great to see that they've finally started to turn things around, given the tricky starts of the season they had.
Yeah, I mean, you know me well. I like to err on the side of caution, but I'd love to sit here and be like, McLaren are back, like people in chat have been doing, everything else, and I'd love to see them back and being able to challenge Red Bull. But I'm going to sort of hold off on that hype a little bit. I don't want to hop on that train just yet. I'm not far off. I'm at the station waiting for it, but I'm not quite on it yet. I'm a little bit further down the tracks than everybody else, but I want to see how it does at places like Hungary and Spa, where it's not all, fast and flowing is what we've just had with Austria. And to a bigger extent Silverstone. We've got some fast flowing stuff at Hungary, but there's also the tight twisty bit towards the end of the lap. You've got Spa's got a little mix of both, so that's really when I'm going to start to get excited for McLaren, if they're still fighting for podiums or challenging Red Bull like they did early on today and throughout that race after Spa. Then I will get excited, if that makes sense. So, but I mean, the update has to be making a difference, because Oscar Piastri last weekend, compared to Norris, was nowhere. He gets the majority of that update, just the wings missing, I think. And then he's suddenly right up there with him. So, I mean, Lando Norris, superb yesterday. Excellent today. Great move off the line. Great start. Managed to get past Verstappen. Held him off pretty well for, actually, I think, what did I write down? About 4 laps, was he? Something like that?
Yeah, lap 5 was the overtake.
So, I mean, he's done a great job there, because, I mean, I thought Verstappen would be back past down to Brooklands and through Luffield, but he wasn't. He was actually being threatened by Piastri. So, fantastic for Norris. A little bit concerned at the end, and I thought they'd... Let's try not to swear today. I did enough swearing yesterday in the stream, so let's say I thought they'd effed it when they put him on the hards, and I think Norris did as well, but actually it turned out to be the right call. He was able to pull a gap in the end after fighting off Hamilton. Great battle there between those two. Great defence. So really, really impressed with Norris today, and Piastri as well all weekend. Absolutely fantastic. Third on the grid yesterday. Never, Norris making a top 3 on the grid. You go, okay, I could see that. Piastri, never saw that coming at all. And stayed within a second of Verstappen for a good first few laps, actually, to kind of keep the pressure on, keep Verstappen having to just check his mirrors every now and again, make sure he knows he's there. Did a great job challenging on that first lap as well, and managed to leave some good space, which some rookies don't always do, but Piastri did, so good racing there. And then I thought, good team play by McLaren when they said over the radio to Piastri, hold your position behind Norris, we're going together. Or they said that to Norris, he's going to hold position, we go together. Good teamwork. Maybe some might argue that helped Piastri back, but maybe he wouldn't have had the pace anyway. We'll never know. And it was looking good. Pitted for hards as well, and then the safety car came out and kind of, I am going to say, compromised him, because it cost him that position on the podium. Hamilton on those softs may have challenged him for that third place. We will never know, but the safety car definitely cost him that shot at the podium, because he didn't really have the pace after that to challenge Hamilton. Not that he was a million miles away, by the way. I mean, Piastri was a second behind Hamilton as they went over the line. Obviously, celebrations and things to take into account there, but he was sort of second half, couple of seconds off on that last couple of laps. So he was there, but I think, well, I was going to say, do you think Hamilton would have checked? We'll never know, will we, if Piastri had been third? He had a gap, so he might have been able to manage that and do all right. But either way, he called it bittersweet. I can understand that, but I think he'll look back in, and he was happy, but I think he'll look back in a few days and be like, that's a freaking mega result. I'm happy with that. It's big points as well. 30 points, Will, for McLaren this weekend. More than they've scored all season to that point.
Yeah, I was about to say that last bit more than they've scored the entire season so far, which is, it's just ridiculous, really, when you think about it. As with Piastri, I don't know. I mean, he might have held him off, but I wonder if Hamilton or Norris's experience and defending experience really helped him out, stay ahead of Lewis in those first few laps off the safety car. Can Oscar do that yet? I'm not completely convinced. I don't know. It would have been very, very close. Had they put him on softs, or either McLaren on softs, then we might have been looking at a very different story. I think that even though it worked out, it was probably the wrong call. And the safer bet would have been to go onto softs. When I saw him bring up the hards, I thought, oh, here we go. We're having a Ferrari moment. But it did. It
More on Ferrari later.
Yeah, we'll get to them. But yeah, it's going to be a big sort of boost of confidence for him after what was a bit of a difficult start to the season. Like he wasn't doing anything majorly wrong. He was just being a bit quiet. Where if we kind of compare that to maybe the likes of Norris or Russell's early or first seasons, wasn't quite matching up when he was the one we were kind of comparing them to coming into the year. So yeah, really, really strong result. I'm gutted he didn't get the podium because I do like Piastri, but yeah, I think it's a matter of time. If this McLaren has this actual pace now, it's a matter of time before we see Oscar on the podium.
See, you say you're gutted Piastri didn't get the podium, and sure, many in chat will say the same. I can make that. I can turn that into relief for you if you like. If Oscar Piastri got the podium, I was going to sing at the start of the stream. So actually,
oh, fair enough.
Saving grace.
Right.
Thanks, Oscar. Saved us all from that one. Thank you to Shantanu for your super chat. Says one of the better races this year, made a solid case for preserving the classic tracks. Fewer street circuits, please. FOM. Also McLaren and Williams. Wow, thank you so much for your super chat. Sorry, it's a bit slow. Streamlabs is taking a while to update today, but it seems to be coming through now. Valentine as well. Thank you for your super chat. Says you and Will are by far my favourite hot tub streamers. Hot tub. Where are you watching us from, Valentine?
That's
and I hope you got pants on.
End of the season. End of the season. That's what we've got to do.
Hot tub stream. Thank you very much, Valentine.
That's not an image you need. It's not an image you need.
And Steph Strick as well. Thank you for your super chat. Really appreciate the first super chat. So thank you, Steph Strick, for your support. If you want to put your own super chat in, you can do, but I will always come to chat, particularly when we get to Q&A a little bit later on. So yeah, great stuff from McLaren is where I'm going to go with that one. Fantastic. A few people that have just joined the stream going, why are we talking about hot tubs and Sean and Will in their pants? This isn't good. Welcome to the F1 word. It happens from time to time. Not the hot tub thing, the comments. Quickly, spin on. Well done to McLaren. Anything else on the Piastri stuff? I've already said about how I hope that this carries on for the next few races. I hope they're back. If they want to keep chrome on the car, by the way, I will say this. Can you just take McLaren, the Vodafone McLaren, all chrome, and then where the red is, just change that to papaya and put your sponsors there? I know you want to keep your papaya identity, yes, but that would look much better. So if you want to keep your chrome, because it's clearly brought you some good luck this weekend, I don't believe that, by the way, but let's pretend for a second it did, then go with it that way, because I'm not... I think if the bits that... It doesn't matter, I know, but the bits that are carbon, if they were chrome, maybe it would look better, and I do prefer the chrome to that blue they have on there, but it's not... It looks a bit of a... Let's put chrome on for the British Grand Prix. Oh, let's do it. Let's just slapdash. Let's stick a bit here and stick a bit there, and that'll do. It's not complete for me.
It was half-hearted, wasn't it? And I guess a bit of a shame, given all the teasers coming up to it made it look like what you were describing, that chrome Vodafone McLaren with the red switch for papaya, which I think would look amazing. I mean, I think that would look really, really good. But apparently there were some FIA rules that made it a lot more difficult to do, like since they just had the Triple Crown livery as well. So I'll give them that. But even I was looking at Tomo's video where he's sort of made his own variation on it, and his ones are just so much better. So McLaren, hire Tomo, please.
If you're listening, Zach, which you won't be, if you are, massive super chat, please, Zach Brown. But also to celebrate 18 grand to celebrate the 18 points for Lando Norris. We'll take that. I'll split you with it. Will split it with you. There you go, 9 grand.
Yep, sounds good.
But no, if he's listening on the off chance, no chance, then yeah, maybe for next year. I know the rules are very much kind of you can only. I think it's something. I'm not going to go look for the rules, but it's essentially you can only change so much of your livery so many times before you're breaking the rules, which Like, come on, I get rules are rules, but goodness me. But yeah, something a bit better next year with a bit of chrome in there. Go back to classic McLaren and let's have some wins in a chrome livery. We want that one. Let's move on. Well done, McLaren is really the summary of that entire waffle there. I think both very impressed. Also quite impressed today, Will, with Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton on the podium. Yes, there is an element of fortune with the time of the safety car, but he did also take his tyres. The 33 laps, he's still got to manage that, and his pace was okay up to that point as well. So credit where it's due. Very much like I'd say for George Russell if in the past when he's looked in with a safety car. So got to say that one. Was wide at turn 3 at the start was Lewis Hamilton, which cost him some places. So did well to come through. Really enjoyed the brief battle with Fernando Alonso, and if those drivers ever want to battle, then if they can make that race long side by side for the whole thing, that'll be fantastic. Always enjoy a Hamilton Alonso battle, so that was nice for a while, but pace wasn't there for Aston Martin. We'll get to them in a bit. Hamilton got through on lap 7, pitted under the full safety car for softs and rejoined ahead of Piastri. That's kind of his race up to the safety car, wasn't it? Sort of managing tyres and pace and decent pace and staying in touch. And then when safety car came out, that helped him. And then, of course, the nice little battle with Lando Norris. Norris doing a great job to defend, but Hamilton tried and it didn't work out. And I wonder if the softs towards the end were just going off a little bit because he fell 2.9 behind, having been on his back for quite a while. So, Verstappen saying the softs were not great. Maybe Hamilton found after a while, because they won't have been new softs either, will they? Because they'll have all used them in qualifying. So maybe tyres got off a little bit towards the end. But, nothing against Hamilton. I'm glad they did, because Norris second, I think he thoroughly deserved that based on the weekend.
Yeah, there was another new upgrade for Mercedes, wasn't there, today? You had new front wing, and I think there was something else, and they appeared to gag Lewis Hamilton in the car as well, because he was quiet throughout the entire thing. There was no, my tyres are dead. There was no, I can't drive this car. There was no just moaning in general, which was a kind of nice relief. I wonder if that has anything to do with his radio antics in Austria, but it was a solid race. It didn't look like it was going to be a solid race from the early practice form. They really turned it around throughout Friday and Saturday, and that paid dividends on the Sunday. So fair play to Mercedes, and they were outclassed by McLaren. But as I think I was saying a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about, was it a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, Austria was a couple of weeks ago. Was it?
Last week.
Was it last week? I don't know.
Austria was last week, wasn't it?
It was last week. Yeah.
Who am I? What am I doing here?
as I was saying last week, it is going to be very track dependent, I think, going forward for the rest of the season over which team is second best. So, it'll be interesting to see going forward.
A couple of good points in chat that I want to mention. Justin, and I said this in my preview, Silverstone always likely to have a safety car. Mercedes has a great strategy, so maybe some of them hanging on just in case we do get the safety car. So that means that from the last 11 British Grand Prix, there have been 11 safety car periods, at least one. So that's 11 races in a row with safety cars at Silverstone. So maybe some teams towards the back end of the field next year can bear that in mind. Start on the hards and just run them and hope a safety car comes out, because it probably will at Silverstone. So that's a great point. I also saw a very good point from Space, who says 3 different manufacturers on the podium has to be a good thing. I hadn't even twigged that. Red Bull, McLaren and Mercedes. So always good to see that one. So that was, I pleased to see 3 manufacturers, especially with imagine 2026 all works out and we get that every weekend, and you've got your Audis involved and your others. I was so excited for 26, and we're still in 2023, for God's sake. They need to start changing the rules, because they changed them, and then we get new teams or new manufacturers and all of this, and contracts are up and drivers are already rumoured to be going somewhere. I'm going, can't wait for 2026. It's like, Sean, that's 3 years ago, mate. Come on. You got to cover the next few seasons first. But yeah, good stuff from Howard today. George Russell as well. I don't think he didn't seem, I missed the radio message, I caught the end of it. He sounded a little bit disappointed over the radio towards the end of the race to be down in 5th place. Maybe safety car hurting him a little bit, but really struggled to get past Leclerc in the first stint, and then managed to, I think, do a phenomenal job to take a set of used softs, or according to the Pirelli graphic, it's a used softs, all the way to lap 28. I was not expecting the softs to go that far into the race. I think the pit window was around lap 11. 11 to 15. So to go to 28, that's quite, so maybe track conditions, temperature helping out a little bit there, but he's driven well to do that. Had good pace, was quicker than the Ferrari, just could not get through, maybe a bit draggy or just a lack of straight line speed in general for the Mercedes there. So good stuff, but could have overcut him, Will, but then pitted, and a 3.9 second pit stop from Mercedes, a slow stop, and that, it's difficult to say because he came out about 1.8 behind Leclerc. So even if you say 3.9 seconds, that's a 2.1 second stop. You still need the team to deliver an absolute corker in the pit lane, don't you? So maybe would have still been behind him, but it certainly didn't help having a slow stop. So that was frustrating, but did also make a beautiful move around the outside of Leclerc at Luffield on lap 31 for P8. So he eventually got Leclerc. It just took quite a while to get there, and in the end had to make a very nice move to do it. So good stuff from George today. But again, did you get that? He seemed quite disappointed over his team radio at the end, maybe with the safety car timing.
Yeah, I think it was just bad luck, really. And I think that the Ferraris were being annoying, I think, throughout the race with the Mercedes, because Hamilton was
Very
struggling
annoying.
to get past. Well, they're usually annoying for the fans just based on strategy. But today, yeah, they were just in the Mercedes way and were not particularly moving very far up the field, but were very good at keeping the Mercs behind, because obviously Russell stuck behind behind Leclerc, and then Hamilton stuck behind Sainz for a lot of the early portion of the Grand Prix as well. So yeah, it was just bad luck with the strategy, with the safety car, and the strategy, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. You've just sort of got to suck it up a bit, like Piastri in a way. There's not much you could have really done.
Thank you to IDK, just changing my name, for your super chat. Very much appreciate that, mate. It says, first live F1 race I've been to, and man, what a special one. Hope you had a great weekend. I love Silverstone, fantastic. And then he says, when does Lando get his first win? We'll maybe do that bit in Q&A a bit more in detail, but I'll be honest, there was a moment today when he took the lead, and I think he didn't disappear or anything, but he built a small gap to Verstappen, and I did sort of think, he couldn't, could he? Could he really? There was a little moment. It didn't work out that way, but it would be fantastic if he'd done that. So thank you very much for your super chat there. But yeah, anything else you want to add on Mercedes, Will, before we roll on? Just checking through my notes. I wrote some of Russell's radio down, because I always do, because he always says something that interests me, usually crikey. He says, that McLaren is so quick on those hards. Impressive. I think the McLaren pace hasn't just surprised us fans. It hasn't just surprised even McLaren. It seems to have surprised the entire bloody field. And I'm hoping they've done what I'm going to call an Aston Martin, and that they've just made a nice leap forward, and this is all the car, and I'm going to be positive. It's the car, it's great, but not necessarily track specific. They're just back, and they're going to challenge, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston Martin in that fight for second in the constructors. I think on 59 points and Mercedes on 203, that second in the constructors is maybe a little bit off. But you know what I mean? Fighting to be best of the rest behind Red Bull, I suppose, is what I'm saying. But that's me being positive. I doubt it, but I've got to try and be positive from time to time, every now and again.
Yeah. I've not got much more to add on Mercedes and McLaren, really, but yeah. Sorry, not much more to add.
That's all right. I've noticed, actually, and I'm not being a bitch because I'm slagging myself off as well, or criticising myself. I'm pointing something out about myself, but me, you, and Dan all do the same thing when we don't know what to say, or when we always go, but yeah. And it's like, yeah, fair enough. So I'll do it again.
It's just a content creator thing.
Yeah, so yeah. Aston Martin. Why not? We'll just transition in quite nicely like that. P7 for Alonso, P14 in the end for Stroll. I think he was 12th or 11th across the line. 5-second penalty, get to that in a second. But 7th for Alonso. Not in his own race as such. He was 4.3 behind Perez in the end and was sort of fending off Albon a little bit. But we didn't see a huge amount after the fight with Hamilton, and until Albon came up. A bit of I wouldn't say lonely race for Alonso, but not probably all that entertaining. The pace just wasn't there. I'm not totally surprised by that. They said after qualifying that the car didn't feel good in the slow, or balance-wise in the slow or the high speed. And if you haven't got a good car in the high-speed corners at Silverstone, you've got a problem. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, and you can as well, Will, but I think it's quite a draggy car anyway. So maybe this isn't a track that was ever going to suit Aston Martin. So I think for them, some points on the board, again, by Alonso is a good thing, but they just seem to lack pace everywhere, didn't they, today? And that's a shame, but it's going to happen in a tight fight in there, isn't it, really? You're going to have days where if your car isn't almost perfect on that track, then a Mercedes, a McLaren, or both are going to leapfrog you. Will? Has Will gone? Has Will died? I think we're going to have to rip Will. Possibly an internet thing here. So F for Will in chat.
Any luck?
Is he back? He's there.
Okay, sorry.
Everyone chat's like, Will?
Sorry, I was talking and I was okay. Weird. Anyway, I was sort of just saying about track dependency again, and it's so tight at the moment that it's just one of those weekends where if you're not on the pace, you're really not on the pace. But that's not a bad thing, I think, in a general sort of Formula One sense if everyone's so close. I think Alonso said prior to the weekend, or maybe it was after practice, I can't remember, that Aston Martin just need to take a bit of a mental reset over the summer break and over the next couple of races and kind of get back on the front foot again, because it's a couple of races now, but they've not been as close to Red Bull as maybe we'd expected and maybe they would have liked. But again, I think that comes down just to the Austria and Silverstone tracks not really suiting that car. I think Hungary could be interesting. It's another high downforce track though, isn't it? So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, should be. Well, we'll see how they get on. But I think I try not to say but yeah now.
It's paranoia now. I've set it off. I did it to Dan and now he can't do it.
But yeah, that's about all I've got on Aston.
It's true. I don't know what it is, a content creator thing. Along with and hey. That gets thrown around a lot. But yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter, does it? Lance Stroll in P12 today. Pitted end of that 31 for softs. Got a 5-second penalty for a collision with Gasly, having avoided a 5-second penalty for leaving the track and clearly gaining an advantage. Obviously, the stewards felt maybe Gasly left him no space and no choice but to be out there in that overtake around the outside of Stowe, but he got his revenge a few laps later when they collided. I've not got many arguments with that penalty, to be honest. Will, he's gone. Gasly's up the inside into, I'll go to corner numbers just for people, but turn 16, and then Stroll's tried to come back up the inside of 17, bounced over the curbs a little bit, and then they've banged wheels and it's damaged Gasly's suspension. It's taken Gasly out of the race. 5 seconds is not much consolation to Pierre, but at least it's a punishment for Stroll. I think he got 2 penalty points as well, which I know for collisions they want to give them out, but it wasn't exactly dangerous. It was just a clumsy. I think Billy Munger said in the coverage that he felt on one angle it looks like a racing incident, but from a different angle you sort of see it's more towards Stroll. But it was a bit of a clumsy one, so I think that's definitely a penalty. But I was surprised, given all the track limit stuff last week, that they didn't come down harder on Stroll for the one at Stowe. But do you think maybe the stewards have gone and looked at it and said, something along the lines of, Gasly's left him no room there, so we'll let it off? I'll go check the FIA, see if they said anything. But
yeah, it was the first incident where Stroll was overtook off track that I was more confused at. I'm amazed he kind of got away with that one. The collision, it was once again he was off track. It was kind of unavoidable. So I would have almost understood if they called that a racing incident. I don't think it was, but I would have understood if they'd gone that way. Yeah, it was just that first move, which I'm just amazed that the FIA looked at and said, yeah, that's okay. Whereas everyone on the coverage was like, he'll get a penalty for that. And then they were like, nah, actually, it's all good. I know we've been strict on track limits recently, but no, that's okay. Yeah, I've said it again. Just as you said, a clumsy move from Stroll. And how many penalty points is he on now? I've got a feeling he's one of the ones that's higher up. Yeah,
7 for 12 months, so he's got 7 now.
All
Not
right,
too bad.
We may well see Drogovic in that Aston after all. We'll see.
My annoyance, because Dell said it would have been ridiculous if Stroll had got a penalty for the first one. If he can't do that, then there's no way you ever overtake at that corner. I kind of agree, but from an FIA stewarding point of view, Victor Martin's in the F2. I know different series, but he got a penalty for being forced wide by Iwasa, and he kept the position up at turn 3 in the race and got a 5-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage.
Yeah, that was
I would
ridiculous.
say that was less of a penalty than the Stroll and the Gasly one was, in my opinion. So, just from a consistency point of view, I expected that to be a penalty for Stroll, even though I wouldn't have given it. I think if the whole off track and getting an advantage is, I think it's a penalty in most cases. But if a driver actually shoves you out there or forces you out there and you've not got a choice, then I kind of think 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But the FIA don't always think like that. Is my stance. So it didn't matter for Victor Martins in the end because he managed to finish well up the road, didn't he? And got the win, but it could have cost him his first F2 win, I want to say.
Yeah. No, you're right. I was really angry at that because I looked at it and said, he's barely, if at all, gone off the road. It's lap 1, and yeah, I wasn't happy about that. But at least he still got the win.
Just read the decision for the Gasly the penalty for Stroll versus Gasly, by the way. The stewards considered that Gasly was ahead at the apex of turn 16 and was entitled to the line at the exit before turn 17. Stroll attempted to keep the line and, as a result, had to drive off the circuit approaching the apex of turn 17, which has significant sausage curb. Sausage curb in an FIA document looks so funny. I'm 37. Anyway, I don't know why I found that funny. I just did. Carry on. Stroll re-entered the circuit at an angle that caused him to collide with Gasly, so they've put that at Stroll's door. And I tend to agree, but it doesn't matter really. It does for consistency, but he would have been 11th. He ended up 14th. It's not destroyed his race, I guess, is my point. By it doesn't matter. But that's kind of just disappointed with Aston overall. And I think I do want to make this point, and I kind of touched on it the other week as well. Possibly said it yesterday. It could have been last week. So if I said it on Sunday last week, well, then you're hearing it again. Why not? Fernando Alonso's been so consistent, and even when there's been difficult weekends in that car where it's not been up to pace, like this weekend, he's still picked up points. Stroll is, as I look at it, costing Aston Martin second in the constructors at the moment because Mercedes have 203 points, Aston have 181. If Stroll was more consistent, and I'm not saying he should be on the pace of Alonso for the same reason that Stoffel Van Dorn should never have been on the pace of Alonso. Yes, I've mentioned Stoffel, I don't care. And other drivers, you don't expect Perez to be on the pace of Verstappen or Bottas to be on the pace of Hamilton. You never expected that, but if he's closer to Alonso and more consistently scoring decent points, Aston could have been. I'm not saying they would have beaten Mercedes in the constructors over the course of the whole season, but they'd probably still be P2 now, and I think he's costing them. So they need to just give him a little shake. Come on, Lance, sort your Saturdays, mate. I know you've out-qualified your teammate twice, and Sean is really harsh about your Saturdays, but just let's have a bit more pace on a Sunday. We need to be a bit more consistent and closer to your teammate. But again, maybe with the way Mercedes have developed, they'd probably lose second anyway. We're not going to know until the end of the season, but I feel like I'm not going to keep saying it. It's yeah. Anyway, let's just spin. I'm not going to say it. Let's spin on to Williams. Alex Albon today, P8, and some really good points for Williams. And Logan Sargent, shout out, P11, not a million miles away, 4.1 seconds off Carlos Sainz's Ferrari for a point. So actually not bad from Sargent at all. Really happy for him this weekend. He was my bold pick for a surprise point if we got some chaos. So I wasn't far off with that one. But Alex Albon all weekend, Williams all weekend, have been surprisingly strong. And I'm really pleased to see them getting a good result. And that moves them critically ahead of Haas in the constructors because they've got better results. Level on points, but better results. So well done to them. And I really feel like McLaren, Williams have taken a very good step forward. Yes, these last couple of tracks may well have suited them, but they've really taken a step forward. And I think they've got a great shot now. Looking at how Haas fall away on a Sunday, the inconsistency at Alfa Romeo, how shockingly bad that Alpha Tauri seems to be, they've got a great shot at P7 this year, and that would be big for them.
Yeah, Williams really, not just today, the entire weekend. And I'll be honest, when Sargent was P5, I was like, Have they just rolled out the active suspension again? I get it's a heritage kind of celebration, but come on. But
I love
yeah,
that heritage livery and heritage driver aids,
well,
traction
yeah.
control, active suspension.
Yeah, I mean they've just chucked Nigel Mansell back in the car. That's who actually was driving Sergeants Williams this weekend. But yeah, I mean the livery itself, I like it, but given that I was kind of expecting a heritage look, I was a little disappointed. I can't lie, but yeah, no, I was really impressed. In fact, I was story time here. I was expecting Albon to absolutely tank because I met Albon last week in London. And
You were stalking several drivers. I've seen the
I,
selfies. You were like selfies.
I bumped into Albon and Russell the same day. It was quite the day. But yeah, every F1 driver I have met has tanked in the following race. To give you a list: Stoffel Van Dorn, Jolyon Palmer, Daniel Ricciardo several times just before he left Red Bull, and then again as he joined McLaren. Yeah. So I was expecting that trend to continue, but no, they smashed it. And again, like I said, I was a bit disappointed initially by the Williams livery, but I do like it all the same. Onto their actual on-track performance, because that's far more important than the livery, isn't it? Or my vanity and meeting drivers. Yeah, they well, I think it's a track that really suits them, and again, Williams have tailored their car, I think, to a few specific circuits. So when we get to the likes of Monza, I'm really, really excited to see how that car behaves, because this gave us a bit of a sneak preview. But come Monza, that slippery nature of the Williams is going to be really, really scary. And that'll be a team that I'll be keeping a lookout for coming into qualifying as being like a surprise top 5.
Yeah, I agree. We know they're good in a straight line, aren't they? And fast tracks. So maybe not a total surprise if picked up points this weekend. But I think how well they did. I know practice doesn't matter, but as in terms of results, it doesn't. It does for setting the car up. But from the whole weekend, I think their performance has been brilliant, and I think they deserve a lot of credit. And I agree on the livery. I was disappointed because we kind of got excited for the idea of a yellow cannon livery, hadn't we, on Sunday last week, and then they did that, and I do like it. And if they want to stick with it, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure they won't. They'll go back to their old one for next time out in Hungary. But yeah, great stuff from Williams. I'm just really pleased. I said it yesterday, so I'll do it very briefly. But just really pleased to see that James Vowles has come in, given that team a shake, and is making a difference already. And I can't wait to see what he does next weekend. Ferrari 9th for. Actually, hang on a second. Did I miss something on? No, that was it. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say about Albon before I move on to Ferrari. Apologies. I'll go back to the Williams picture. So he got to pit under the virtual safety car on lap 33 for soft, so he didn't get the full safety car, he just got the virtual, so maybe a full safety car, it wouldn't change much, would it? So, but great move on lap 44 at turn 1 on Carlos Sainz to take P8. I mean, he took advantage of Perez getting past Sainz, that put Sainz on the back foot, but what a ballsy move up the inside of that super fast turn 1, so well done Alex there, and some really good defence as well at Brooklands and Luffield in particular on the final lap versus Leclerc, and he wasn't a million miles away from Fernando Alonso either, so just great from Albon, and again Sargent as well. I haven't got much in my notes, just pitted end of lap 29 for Hards, great race. Again, I said it yesterday, the word from Williams after the session was that Logan Sargent is effectively improving in every way they need him to, and he's sort of strengthening his position in that team. So I think another season or two in that car, and I think Logan Sargent will be picking up some very good results. So well done to Williams. It's nice to say that. I am a big fan of Williams. I didn't used to be because Michael Schumacher, Williams, etc. But anyway, on the sort of Michael Schumacher at Ferrari versus Williams, Ferrari. Charles Leclerc P9, Sainz P10. I said on Thursday Leclerc for pole and a podium. That went brilliantly well. I even said yesterday I thought Leclerc would be on the podium because I didn't think the McLaren pace would hold up, and they ended up 9th and 10th. Just not a good day at all. Leclerc defended hard against Russell. Russell felt he was moving under braking. I think, and I'll make this point immediately, it's fine because it's just on the line, and I don't think he went over the line with the moving under braking. I think you could do it up to the line if that makes sense, but you go over that and then you're looking at slap wrists and black and white flags for driving standards and things like that. So it was hard, but I think just about fair. pitted at the end of lap 18 for the hards and rejoined in P8. That, for me, correct me if you think I'm wrong, everybody, it's fine. But for me, that is where Leclerc's race started to fall apart. The fact that he came in 10 laps before Russell on the softs and he was on the harder medium tyre, pitted for the hard, which was clearly the wrong call, and then came into the safety car to put on the mediums, which did seem to give a bit more pace. But that's kind of where it all fell apart for me for Charles Leclerc. And Carlos Sainz, I don't really know what to say about his race. He forgot what Plan B was. Which is really concerning.
No, you think that's concerning? What's more concerning was the communication. The engineer comes over and he goes and says, "Okay, Charles. Okay, Sainz, we're going to Plan B." Then obviously Sainz says, "What is Plan B? I can't remember." And then the response from Ferrari was, "We'll come back to you." And you're like, hang on, you don't know it either.
What's that telling me?
To go on to it.
Hang on, let me get my big book of strategy out. Yeah, Plan B is... Well, I just wrote pitted end of lap 26 for hards, so maybe that was Plan B. We'll never know. Gasly tried to move on the outside on lap 45 for P10. Really nice move actually from Gasly, but then Sainz went back up the inside in Copse to take it back, so a good move there from him. But just a very sloppy day from Ferrari. I think, like I say, Leclerc's strategy all fell apart when they pulled him in on that. I mean, why start your car on the mediums if you're going to come in after 18 laps? I mean, I don't know who's thought that up. Maybe just didn't. I mean, he wouldn't have great pace on the mediums, and then he put the hards on, Will, and he was actually no quicker, in fact slower than the McLarens running used mediums and George Russell on those soft tyres. It's just very weird.
We do know who thought that up. It was Ferrari, and that's why we're probably not surprised. Yeah,
let's be honest.
It's I don't know. I honestly feel like Ferrari just say, "What letter shall we use today?" Or no, Plan J. Let's go for that. And
Sesame Street
Plan
strategy
J again. Yeah, honestly, yeah. It's not even a surprise at this point. And again, I mean, Sainz dropped like a stone in the second half of the race. Now, I thought he had a problem at one point when he lost like 3 places in 2 corners. And I thought, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? And then I kind of wish it was a problem, because you then realize, no, that's just his pace at the moment on these hards. It's really not worked, and everyone else seems to know what they were doing. And yet again, who falls through? It's Ferrari, and you could hear Sainz getting more and more frustrated on the radio. And you can see why. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is, because they've made changes to that strategy department and there's still a problem. If anything, it's getting worse. So, yeah, I just don't know.
We know their tyres up. We know they're not great at that. But the theory coming into the weekend was that the new Pirelli tyres were stronger, if you like, at the front, and that should help teams like Ferrari, but it definitely didn't help teams like Ferrari today, because maybe it was a tyre wear thing. I'll have a look and see if they've got any kind of press release in a minute, and it didn't help Aston Martin, and they were the 2 teams that people were earmarking as teams that could benefit from this new compound of tyre, and both of them were really kind of nowhere today in terms of pace, which is really bizarre and really frustrating. But I mean, you know, strategy, if they're still eating their tyres up and they can't do more than 18 laps on a set of mediums, when you've got, again, Russell doing 28 laps on softs, used softs, and Norris doing 33 laps, Hamilton 33 laps, and Verstappen 33 laps, among others, on mediums, then clearly they need to be looking at what's up with that car and solving that issue, which is nice and easy to say on a live stream, sat in your office at home, and it's not your problem, is it? Just sort your car out. Bit like Christian Horner in Drive to Survive. Sort your car out. Oh, it's that easy, is it? There you go. But you know what I mean. That's clearly an area that needs to be improved on. But yes, I thought Sainz had an issue. He just fell away, didn't he? Completely. I think they said in commentary, potentially lucky to get a point at the end. I think they thought he was going to fall out of the points, and he didn't in the end. But you know, that's just not good enough for Ferrari. I did miss a super chat, by the way, so I'll do this quickly. Thank you to Wakasan. Says double the number of Norris's car. Thank you so much for your super chats. This first time tipper, long time listener. I think Piastri deserves driver of the day a bit more than Lando. So unlucky. Thank you so much for your support, not just with your super chat, but in general, if you've been here a long time. So thank you so much. Really, I do appreciate that. I'm not gonna bitch about Ferrari too much. We do it a lot, and this is a guy who has a soft spot for Ferrari. So it's a lot of it comes from frustration, Will. I'm not going to lie. I'd love to see them sort whatever's going wrong out, but I just don't know if they can do it. There was another thing on the radio, wasn't there, with Sainz, where they were discussing at the safety car whether to change tyres, and he was like, I'll leave it up to you. And I just thought, that's ballsy, Carlos. He'll be in for Inters in a minute.
No tyres. You can go out.
Track with nothing. Let's see what happens.
Just on the rims, yeah.
You can't eat your tyres up if you've got no tyres on. It makes sense.
Well, that team radio was actually really interesting because just before that point, Carlos had put through a really clear instruction. He was like, right, tell me what the running order is and what tyres they're on. And his engineer couldn't do that. And I was like, is this a language barrier issue? What's going on? That really confused me because it was a really simple instruction. And it should just have been a case of, right, here's my display, reading through the running order like they do at the end of every race anyway. And he couldn't do that. That really confused me as to why that was such a difficult thing to do.
Interesting point from Scott. Says, I don't believe strategy was their issue today. They were the 6th fastest team behind Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, Williams and Aston Martin in that order. I nearly choked. I don't know. You didn't even make me choke, Scott. Oh my God, Scott's trying to kill me. No, I sort of agree, but I would say strategy was still a factor today. But you're right. The race pace wasn't there. They were certainly behind Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes on pace. I think potentially with a better strategy, they could have been in and around Alonso, which is an image for you. But I think that's maybe, you're probably right on that one, to be fair. But the strategy definitely played a part, but I don't think it was their, I'll reword it, it wasn't their main issue today. But yeah, maybe a language barrier, maybe something that they need to work on. But yeah. I saw something else I wanted to read. It was from Cited Canvas, actually, I think it was. Where are you? Yeah, Cited Canvas. I wanted to bring this up. 5-second penalty for the safety car for track limits. 100%. I don't know how many times it ran all 4 wheels over the white line out the final corner. Lead by example. It's a disgrace. I'm joking. You're not going to give the safety car a 5-second penalty for track limits, but I'm just messing about. Please do leave a like, by the way. 130 nearly likes. 570 of you still here. Please do drop a like. Really appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe as well. 2 more races before the summer break. There's a week off, and then it's Hungary and Belgium. So very much looking forward to those. Not quite as much as Willie's looking forward to them, but I am very much looking forward to them. Not jealous at all. But yeah, please do subscribe. Drop a like as well. If you'd like to pop a super chat in, feel free. But I'll come to you guys a little bit more in just a few minutes when we do Q&A. We'll finish running off through the field, and then we'll do some questions and all of that business as usual, and driver of the day and all that good stuff. There you go. We'll leave it at Ferrari then. Again, I don't want to be going in too hard on them, and we'll go to Alfa Romeo. This is going to be quick. Where were they in the end? 12th for Bottas, 15th for Zhou Guanyu. I'll tell you how exciting Zhou's race was. I'll read you every single one of my notes for him. Pitted at the end of lap 24 for first time and put on the hards. Bottas started P20 on the grid following disqualification from qualifying. Not a pit lane start, as Red Raven and I were discussing yesterday. We weren't sure which it would be, so it was a back of the grid start. And pitted on the virtual safety car on lap 33. Thanks for coming. I don't really know what else to say. It's annoying because I'm sure they've done more than that, but it just didn't feel like... I certainly don't recall seeing much, if anything, of them. And they've ended up with no points, and they're quite a way off, aren't they? They seem to have taken a step back a little bit from where they were last season, for sure. Certainly first half last season, took a massive step back, but disappointed. But I mean, 12th place probably isn't terrible for Bottas. Where was he? 2.1 off Sargent, which is 4.1 off the points, so 6.2 off a points paying position isn't horrific, is it? I know safety car helps that a little bit. Just maybe another day with no pace.
Yeah, I mean, given he started from the back as well, I think it's impressive. But yeah, I'm just in the same situation as we were last week with Alfa. They were there. They raced around the track for 52 laps, but what did they actually do? Did we ever actually see them on the live feed? I don't think so. It's just a bit difficult, really, but just another quiet one and another quiet race. So not a whole lot to comment on them. And they are kind of in that back marker tier, aren't they? In 2023. I don't think we really have back markers anymore, but if you had to call a team back markers. We're looking at Alpha at the moment, unfortunately, and yeah, just a shame, really. And again, I've said it basically every time I think I've come on here, but it's just sort of a case of sucking it up and dealing with it until we get to 2026 and they have some more funding underneath them.
Yeah, the long term future is brighter for that team, but it's just in the short term, you still want to see more, don't you? It's next year they'll be just Sauber, I think, because the Alfa Romeo thing's up unless they get another sponsor in, but they'll be Sauber again. But they are basically Sauber anyway. But good point actually on Bottas, 20th to 12th. It's an 8th-place gain. Yes, there's some retirements, but it's an 8th-place gain. Zhou finished higher than he started, which I guess if your car isn't great and you're not likely to be challenging for points, then finishing above where you started is something, isn't it? I suppose it's a bit of a positive. So sorry, Alpha fans.
It's better than going backwards,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah. So... yeah, and I don't remember seeing much of them, if anything, on the world feed. So yeah, sorry, Alpha fans. I've not got much to say, but unless they've got, I mean, I've not had a press release from them, so they haven't got a lot to say either. So not much in that one. Nico Hulkenberg 13th, Kevin Magnussen DNF for Haas. Hulkenberg, I've written clipped Perez / was clipped by Perez and lost his front wing end plate. I believe he pitted for a new wing at the end of lap 7 as well, so that's probably compromised him there quite a bit. So actually, for Hulkenberg, given how Haas dropped like a stone, 14th on the track and 13th after Stroll's penalty from 11th on the grid actually probably isn't a bad result for Haas. As crazy as that sounds, they've gone backwards, and we just said that going forwards is better than going backwards, but they've gone backwards, but usually they go backwards quite dramatically. He's not really fallen away that much. Yes, there were DNFs to take into account, of course, and his incident with Perez, but I would argue that's not a horrendous recovery and result from Hulkenberg, given that I think at one point he was 20 seconds off in last place. So decent from him, but Magnussen, car just went bang. Was that the second time this weekend he stopped on track with a mechanic? It was, wasn't it? With a mechanical issue. So car went pop, and that was it, and brought out the safety car with Kevin Magnussen. So I couldn't really tell you much about Magnussen's race up to that point. I'm sure it was absolutely thrilling from 19th on the grid.
Yeah. Again, Haas, there's just not a lot to say, really. Obviously, Hulkenberg with Perez, it was an unfortunate incident, but that did kind of prevent any more forward progress. I think that he was like 13th or 14th at that point, so not doing awfully. But yeah, that the safety car, ironically, probably helped Hulkenberg catch back up again and at least make something out of the Grand Prix. But a race that I think Haas won't, look back and remember fondly. They'll just move on quickly and hope that Hungary suits the car better.
Some quotes for you. I absolutely love Kevin Magnussen. I find him quite old school in his approach with the media, and I really like that. He's kind of no BS. He says, there was an issue yesterday in qualifying, and then today I didn't finish with another engine issue, so not the best weekend for us. It's a shame, of course, but it's not like we're in a point scoring position. Is that all right, K-Mag? So at least he's saying it as it is. Fair enough. And Nico Hulkenberg says the race was badly impacted early on when Checo came through on the exit of turn 4 and we made contact. A big piece of the front wing fell off one lap later, and that forced us to pit early, so that confirms that. We had to change the front wing. So his race was compromised by that one. So not great from Haas. When was the last time they scored points, Will? I feel like it was, it was in a main race. I know they scored did a great job in the sprint actually last time out, didn't they, with Hulkenberg? But in a main race, the last time Haas scored, it was going to be last weekend, isn't it? No. Oh, wow. Miami. Really? Oh, wow. So 6th in the sprint in Austria.
Just checking now, yeah.
Yeah, 6th in the sprint in Austria. And then in a main race on a Sunday, their last points was a 10th place in Miami, which I'm guessing was for Magnussen. It was, yeah. Wow, that's surprising, actually. Something to look into for future streams. Haas not doing quite so well, and I wonder why. Maybe the car's just not very good, Sean. Maybe that answers that question immediately for you. Well done. And last and very much least, I'm afraid, Yuki Tsunoda 16th, Nick De Vries in 17th. Tsunoda started 16th, so thrilling race for him. 16th to 16th, and De Vries went from 18th to 17th. So retirement's helping both of them there, I suppose, but really just zero pace today is probably my summary for AlphaTauri, and it's not a great surprise given that's kind of how their season's been. They've been pretty disappointing. Well, actually, one of the more disappointing teams, I think, this year. Yuki says it was a difficult race today. Strategy was okay, but didn't have the pace throughout. We did improve in the high speed, so that's good news. But today the struggle was more towards the low speed. Do you know, when you're a team struggling, it's so F1, isn't it? You fix one problem. And then it just breaks the other thing. It's like Bethesda in computer games. Random little point. They'll put out a patch. It's Fallout 76. If you play it, you'll know what I mean. They'll fix one thing. They'll put out the patch and everyone will go brilliant, and then you'll hear something else explode in the distance has gone wrong. So AlphaTauri are the Bethesda of Formula One. They fixed the high speed, but then the low speed was compromised. Still a number of things we need to improve. That was random. And fix for the future. But as for myself, I'm happy with my performance. I did all I could. Team and I are working in the same direction, so I'm looking forward to the future, and we'll push together. And Nick De Vries says it was a decent race. Okay. We did a very competitive first stint on the soft compound, being able to extend it longer than we anticipated while remaining competitive. Fair enough. It's unfortunate we missed out on the virtual safety car opportunity after that. So caught out by the VSC, otherwise he would have won. The first laps on the hard compound were good too, but the last stint was very difficult. The tyres this week have been sensitive temperature-wise because of the track, so we need to look into our data as a whole. We're not where we want to be, and we're not competitive enough, but I'm taking the positives, and I think the majority of the race was good. Insert Helmut Marko comment here. See what he thinks about the majority of the race. Thank you for your super chats, by the way. I'll come to you in a second about AlphaTauri, Will. But thank you to Jonathan. He says, since 2017, love this channel and love from Houston. Thank you so much. Houston, sorry. Thank you so much for your super chat, mate, and for your support since 2017. Has it really been that long? Goodness me. Oh, I need to get a life. What's going on? Yes, 2017, June 2017 it would have been, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix review. Yes, thank you very much. And Creative Lady, thank you for your super chat as well. Really appreciate that one. Waving hippo, so I'll give you a wave. You can't see it, but I did do it. And Rixis as well, thank you for your super chat. Really appreciate the support tonight, guys. That's fantastic of you. Very, very kind. Let me just have a look and see if I've missed any on Streamlabs before we go through. I don't think so, no. So we have caught up on those, so that's fine. AlphaTauri then, Will, what have you got to say? I'm challenging you to say positives.
I was going to say not much. You want to keep your monetization on the stream. They're just hopeless, aren't they? It's really, it's such a shame, to be honest, because bear in mind we were only a few years ago, and they were and Piastri gets this shock win at Monza, and we're like, oh, that's good to see. And then they had a few other podiums kind of around that time as well, with Kvyat in 2019 at Germany, and then Gasly again, wasn't it? He did one at Azerbaijan and one at Brazil, and we started to think, it's not bad for a team that realistically is the only team on the grid that cannot be the fastest team, because Red Bull won't allow that to happen. And it does feel like this year in particular, but maybe a bit last year as well, that the main team were kind of hanging them out to dry a little bit. And given that, the sister team, Kai, is one of the most dominant in history at the moment, it's a little disappointing to see them so far off the pace and having got so much wrong. So yeah, I know you wanted positives. I literally can't find any. They just need to buck their game up. And if I were them right now, I'd be sacking off this year and focusing on 2024, because there's very little I think they can salvage, given how competitive the rest of the field is. Moving anywhere up the Constructors' Championship is incredibly unlikely, even at this stage in the season where, we're what, only at the halfway point, but realistically, how much farther can they get P9? Probably anything above that will be more of a challenge. So just disappointing, honestly, just disappointing.
I'm assuming you mean Gasly for the 2020 win and not Piastri.
Did I say Piastri?
You did.
I meant to say
rewriting history, Will. I'm sick of it. It needs to stop.
I'm tired. I'm sorry.
I'll let you off. I just a couple of things I want to say. First of all, Where are you? Random R fella. I'm going to answer that in a minute, mate. I have seen. You don't need to keep putting it. It's fine, honestly. I have seen it because I want to make a point on that. So I will answer your question in a minute. Miguel, thank you for your super chat as well. Really appreciate that one. Very good of you. So thank you very much for your support. Miguel, often here actually for Race Reaction streams. So good to see you again. Hope you're having a good day and enjoyed the race. Not bad at all. I'll close the poll shortly as well. And I said last, but not by no means, or by absolute, yeah. Anyway, I said last, whatever I said about AlphaTauri. It wasn't at all, Will. There's another team. There was another team out there today. There were 10. Unbelievable. Alpine. Wow. What a fuss-to-cluck that turned into for them. Ocon, mechanical issue pretty much immediately, I think. Where was he? Bless him. Lap 10, hydraulic leak is what they said over commentary, so we'll stick with that for now. Pissy to retire on lap 10. Gasly, actually, to be fair to Gasly, was running pretty decently in the points. Looks good for some points as well. Nice move around the outside of Sainz at Luffield on lap 45 for P10, but then Sainz was back up the inside. Cops, as I said earlier, and then his race was ended by the incident with Lance Stroll. Really nice scrap actually between those two briefly, even with the question marks over the track limits. So it was looking like a points finish for Gasly until he met Lance Stroll, and then it all kind of fell apart. But for Ocon, pretty depressing. 10 laps at Silverstone and then game over. So I think the biggest thing to say about Alpine today, really, is the result obviously is going to be very disappointing. What's going to hurt even more is how good McLaren were, because that's put them ahead now in the Constructors' Championship, and I actually think pretty... I mean, these things could change quite quickly in Formula One, obviously, but I think pretty decently ahead. I mean, yeah, McLaren 59 points, Alpine 47.
Yeah, that's it's. I mean, it's not insurmountable by any means, but given how competitive the field is, realistically, if Stroll pulled his weight, you'd normally have the top 8 cars being either a Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and then Aston in one particular order. That only leaves 2 points paying positions. It means that gap is quite big, and especially if McLaren have now jumped in to that sort of top 4, top 5 debate, and they can get those higher positions, Alpine are in trouble. And one more result like McLaren have had today, and that's kind of curtains for Alpine and the constructors. I mean, on the bright side, there were no track limits infringements for Ocon today. He retired before he was allowed to straight line Maggots and Beckett. So, you've got to think of the positives. But yeah, a disappointing race, especially given it's their home race and their only home race now, given France isn't on the calendar anymore. But what can you do? Just got to sort of suck it up and move on.
Yeah, it's Enstone team, isn't it? Of course, yeah. So it's their home race, yeah. I mean, you can say that for most of the grid, actually, can't you? Home race at Silver, especially Aston Martin. They're basically on the doorstep. But yeah, I've not got anything to add for Alpine. I sort of agree with what you're saying. It's not, the gap to McLaren isn't huge in terms of the points scored, is it? It's not, 59 to 47 isn't massive. It's 12 points. But as you say, when you've only got potentially 3 up for grabs every weekend, that's going to take a while to come down. So that's going to hurt Alpine. So not good. Ocon, I believe, retired last. He retired last year as well. So that's two in a row for Ocon at Silverstone that haven't gone very well. So very disappointing. But nothing else to add on Alpine other than I enjoyed his fight with Carlos Sainz. And to a lesser extent with Lance Stroll. I'll close this poll super quickly for you guys for rating the race. I just said, quite simply, rate the British Grand Prix. 52% said good, 32% said great, 12% said average, and 1% said bad. 52% good, 32 great. I think that's about right, to be honest. Well, I kind of wish I'd done the poll differently now with hindsight. I kind of wish I'd done 2, one pre-safety car and one post-safety car, because I bet the results are slightly different. But I think if you're looking at the race overall, good. It is what I'd go with. I think that's fair. I think.
Yeah. It was sort of a race of, let's say three halves, doesn't make sense, but 3/3. No, it's not the same. We'll run with it. The start of the race, really exciting with Norris getting to the lead. Once Verstappen got back past again, it kind of settled down and didn't do much. And we had a few overtakes here and there, but it wasn't incredibly exciting. And then we had the safety car, and after that, things started to perk up again. So I wouldn't call it yeah, I wouldn't sort of go in that amazing tier, but it was a solid race. It was good fun.
A couple of people pointed out that we didn't mention Apex GP. They didn't even start the race, so actually, they didn't start and they didn't finish. So that's really solid. That's consistent. Very good from them. Intrigued to see how that's going to go with the film and how that works out. I'm always quite skeptical around F1 films because I remember 97 at Monza. This is my memory. The things I can remember. I asked what I had for tea last night. I've got no idea, but I'll tell you this. Monza, I think it was 1997. Sylvester Stallone was there, bigging up this F1 movie he was going to make, and I don't think he ever made it. And if he did, he changed his mind to a different series. So I'm always a little bit skeptical with F1 films, but we'll be interested to see where it goes. But yeah, that was interesting. I thought they were going to be on the installation laps to the grid before this, not the actual formation lap or anything like that, but the installations. So whether, I don't know if they were out there or not. If you're at Silverstone, let me know. But yeah, that was it, Del. He changed it to IndyCar, didn't he? Yeah, it was supposed to be an F1 one he was going to make, and then he went to IndyCar. So thank you for that. I knew he changed it. Yeah, I'm joking. I've got nothing to say on Apex.
I mean, all I can say is the car design was interesting on several levels. Obviously, there are the obvious comparisons to the Rich Energy Haas from a few years ago, and I guess the Lotus as well. But we are all kind of comparing it to the Rich Energy Haas, and then the use of the car number 9. Nikita Mazepin's F1 return confirmed, perhaps. I mean, it's quite apt that it's in the world of fiction, I think. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a bit of meme fuel there for everybody.
The one and only says they were on the formation lap for the first 3 corners or so, but F1 couldn't show any footage at any point. They weren't allowed to show anything. So that's interesting.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. Obviously, they're shooting it for a film. No spoilers, I suppose. And Free says driven and it was kart.
Yeah,
did
it
kart
was.
become IndyCar? Or is it a bit of a contentious one, this one?
Did it not split into kart and IndyCar? And then kart, I think, went like kart at least. Well, it sort of fizzled out. And then IndyCar, that was sort of running parallel, kept going. I might be wrong there. I don't know. But
Okay.
it definitely split into 2 series for a bit. And then kart, I think, failed. I'm sure chat will correct me on that. Looks like I'm right. So few. But yeah, it was something like that.
There you go. Very good. Driver of the day. Lando Norris. Shock horror. Got the official driver of the day. I couldn't believe it. Let me know one surname in chat. Who have you got? And Will, who are you going with, mate? I think today there is an obvious pick or an obvious couple of picks for everybody, but I actually think there are a few in there that could be picked out today.
Sonny Hayes. Let's go with that then.
Yeah. What's his teammate's name? I'll use that one. Then we cover our asses.
I can't remember.
Steve Johnson.
Nikita Mazepin if we go by the driver number, but yeah, I don't know. Piastri, I'm seeing them in chat. That's actually quite a good one. I'm trying not to go with Norris, who is obviously the standout there. Maybe Hamilton. I know he didn't get P2, but a solid race from, where was he, 7th?
Yep, 7th on the
grid.
On the
grids, yeah, to P3. So I know obviously the safety car played a factor in that, but or again, you could go for Verstappen again for managing a gap as he usually does. So yeah, I don't know. Besides Norris, let's just chuck Piastri in there. So I'm being different. Yeah, Piastri.
I often get one pedantic comment who is very much like, well, actually, Verstappen beat everyone, so he's driver of the day. So technically, it's Verstappen. Officially, it's Norris. See, my 3 were in no particular order. The 2 McLarens, so Norris and Piastri, and Albon.
Oh yeah.
See, I never like the obvious pick, but I kind of have to. I kind of feel like I need to go with Norris because, yes, Verstappen won the race, and yes, Piastri did a fantastic job and did lose out because of the safety car, and Albon was brilliant in the Williams, but Norris overtook Verstappen, fought him on outright pace, led the race, and actually, based on what we've seen in 2023 so far, has probably arguably done the best job of keeping him honest of anybody in 2023 in that race. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, most of the gaps have been 10, 15, 20, 25 seconds this season when Verstappen's won. And Norris, for whatever reason, yes, the safety car, but even after the safety car, it only grew to 3.7 seconds. So I think I kind of need to give it to Norris. I'm now going to go back and check the race results and go, oh, you're forgetting when George Russell challenged him or something like that. But I'm sure, thinking about the season as a whole, outside of his teammate, maybe in I couldn't even say Miami, could you really? But sort of in Miami or Bahrain if you want. I feel like he's the first one to properly keep him in check a little bit. So I'm going to do it. Perez, 11 seconds behind in Bahrain in P2. Why can't they do these in like some really clever order? I hate Wikipedia. It's so stupid. This will take me a week. Bear with me. Verstappen was behind Perez. That doesn't count. That's not what I'm looking for. Sean, you want Verstappen wins, you enormous donut. We had the chaos in Australia, so I'm not really going to count this, but Hamilton was 1/10 behind or 2/10. That was under a safety car finish. So you could argue Australia. Mercedes kept him quite honest there, didn't they, for chunks, I suppose. I'm just going to sit here and crash and burn as I do this. Perez, 5.3 behind in Miami. Monaco, pretty much nobody anywhere near him in that one, if I remember rightly. Yeah, Alonso, 27 seconds behind. Spain. Keep even doing this. 24 seconds was the gap. Canada, I don't recall anybody really challenging him there either. Massively, 9.5 Alonso. You could say, yeah, maybe Canada as well. Alonso wasn't a million miles away and there was a threat, wasn't a brief threat. We know in Austria it was pretty dominant. It was yeah. There you go. All that for that, Will. All that for that. So really, one of the few. So you could say maybe Australia, because that was quite a strong weekend for Mercedes. Russell and Hamilton gave him a good fight. You could say Alonso and Hamilton at Canada, but I feel like that was the first time the first time this season that Verstappen's been out front and I haven't just sat there going, well, he's won this then, if that makes sense. It's kind of my point. There was just a little lingering, could he do it kind of thing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was sort of a case of if McLaren played a master stroke on strategy and got an undercut or something, there was a chance, he was in undercut range for a lot of that race. As opposed to, like last week when he was 24 seconds clear of the field. So, yeah, and it does appear, and it was sort of said, I think, on the Sky commentaries straight as the race ended, it feels like everyone's slowly catching up to Red Bull, and give it time, we might just see someone. I don't actually even know who it would be yet. It could honestly be anyone out of Aston, out of Mercedes, out of McLaren that could bring the fight, but it could happen before the end of the season.
Yeah, and people in chat say Norris's pace at the end was strong as well. 0.3 off Verstappen on the final lap, actually, and the fight with Hamilton to fend him off on what should be weaker tyres. I have to go Norris. I'm going to go Norris. What are you saying in chat? Let's do that. Sorry, that was a very long-winded way of me getting to the same point that I was always going to get to, but there you go. Kart failed in 2003. There you go, Will. Greg says Piastri. Freeze says Piastri. Annette says Piastri. Thank you very much, Valentine, for that, passing that one on. Random says Norris. Khalifa says Norris. Piastri or Albon for Wakasan. Del says Sonny Hayes. Terrapog says Piastri. AD says Piastri. Scott says Norris. AJ says Albon. This is a really nice mix, actually. Chris says Piastri. Michael Norris. Valentine's gone with Lando. Another Sonny Hayes there for Jamie. That's what I was thinking of. Demiscu. Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, Antonio says Norris. Space says Checo just because. Why not? Mike says Lewis. Khalifa, I've already read that one, says Norris. Clifford says Piastri and Albon. Kaori, give it to Lando because he overtook Max for the lead at the start. The one and only says Albon. Jandy says Magnussen. Cameron says Piastri. Richie says Norris. Warden says Norris defo deserves it, but all British drivers for a solid showing at their home Grand Prix. Villiers says Piastri. We've read that one. Hank says Norris. Rocket says Verstappen. I'm not laughing at you, Rocket. Rocket says Verstappen. The Hat Pro says Piastri. Pascal says Norris and Bottas. I think Bottas, I wouldn't give him outright driver of the day, but as I say, to go from last to 12th, I think you can give him a lot of credit for that one. Nick says Norris, Piastri or Albon. It is a tough pick. And let's go with 3 more. Raul says Piastri over Norris, Ducks. No, you're allowed your opinion, mate. No problems there at all. Nick says Sargent. And Sassy Lemon Cake, just because you have such a good name, I always love your name, says Albon. So there you go. And thank you as well for another super chat from Jonathan A. Says 2017, the best channel I will never leave. Thank you so much, mate, for your continued support. So yeah, some a good mix there actually, Will. Usually I was expecting a lot more Norris there than we got, but a nice mix. And I think Norris, Piastri, Albon is the 3 I go with. I think you could argue. I think your argument for Hamilton's fair, but I think the safety car could. We won't know for sure. Obviously, what he could have done against Piastri have helped him there to that podium. And Verstappen, you know, if I'm picking the race winner as driver of the day every week, then I might as well skip this point altogether and just always say Verstappen. Just put it on screen. Verstappen, driver of the day. Permanently driver of the day. So good mix there. I'm happy with that one. I'm happy with that. I like a mix. I had a question. That was what I'll do. If you've got any questions, by the way, throw them in chat. Don't forget to drop a like as well. Nearly 170. 500 still here. Let's get that over 200. That would be fantastic if we do that. In fact, no, if we get to 500, that'd be amazing and fantastic. But it'd be great to get to 200. And don't forget to subscribe as well. And thank you for the super chat from Greg, who says, for Q&A given today, what chance McLaren finishes ahead of Aston Martin in constructors by the end of the year? Thank you so much, mate. I'll come to that in a second. Appreciate the support. But Random wanted to know if I watched on Channel 4 or Sky today, and I wanted to make a point. Okay. No hate. Okay. I watched Channel 4 pretty much all weekend. I watched the Sky post-race today because they tend to get the interviews in a little bit more quickly, and I watched a little bit of Sky practice as well, but I watched Channel 4 for pretty much the whole weekend. I will never be happy paying for Formula One, but I would be much more content giving Channel 4 the money I pay Sky for the coverage than the money I'm giving Sky, because I actually think Channel 4 this weekend overall was much better and a much more enjoyable. Now, it could be, you know, yes, it's a much more enjoyable experience, but it could be because I don't watch it very often, so it's a nice change. It could be that, you know, a change is as good as a rest and all that kind of nonsense. But I much preferred it. And I felt like the race commentary, in particular, was much more focused on, brace yourself, the race and what was happening on track. I felt like Alex Jakes and David Coulthard and Billy Munger were much more... I know Crofty and Martin Brundle do commentate on the race, but I felt more like they were paying attention to the race, if that makes sense. I sometimes feel like Crofty and Ted in particular like to have little digs at each other and they get a little bit memey at times or whatever, and I much preferred it. Nick says, you already do. Don't Channel 4 get paid for the license fee? Channel 4 don't get any license fee money. We pay a license fee and you have to have it, but the money goes to the BBC, which is baffling to me, because if I'm paying my license fee and I have to have it to watch ITV and Channel 4 and Channel 5, then I feel like they should get some of the money, but they don't get any license fee money. So if they wanted to set up a Channel 4 F1 streaming service, I could get the rights. I'd happily pay them my 10, 15, 20, whatever pounds a month. So, yeah, that was it. I like nothing. It's nothing against Sky, but I did prefer the Channel 4 coverage. What were your thoughts? Well, where did you watch it?
So I watched it on Sky, but that's just because I had the Sky app on my PC, and it was just easier to do as I made my my own race review alongside it. But I have a thing for the Channel 4 coverage, because a lot of it kind of stems from the guys that originally used to do it on the BBC back in the early 2010s, which was just a great showcase in general. It was really well done. Presenters and the analysis you got, I thought, was really pure and a lot more focused than maybe it is now on Sky. There are elements of the Sky broadcast that I like. Ted Kravitz basically summing it up. and Nico Rosberg. I think if you brought those two over to Channel 4, it would be, you've got the perfect setup there. Channel 4. I don't. Do they still have Eddie Jordan? I don't know whether they do anymore. But
No, it was
David Coulthard's still there, isn't he?
Yeah,
And
DC, Billy Munger,
Mark Webber used
Alice
to do a bit.
Powell, I think, was in this weekend.
Okay.
Jamie Chadwick was there, and yeah, Mark Webber was still about, lingering,
Yeah.
as he does.
Yeah. But there are things I like about the Sky coverage, but Channel 4, I just think, have the better race package, in my personal opinion. The extra stuff that Sky do around it is good, but from a commentary perspective, sort of standpoint, Ben Edwards was great, and obviously it's Alex Jakes now that does it, who's also brilliant. And Crofty just makes too many mistakes, and when Murray did it, it was seen as a what's the word?
Endearing.
Yeah, it was your Murrayisms. When Crofty does it, you just think he's a bit of an idiot. And yeah, I don't know, but for me, I think I've always got sort of a soft spot for the Channel 4 team, because it was the team I grew up watching Formula One around. When I started watching it, I think properly, kind of in from 2010 onwards. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. If I had the option to either give my money to Sky or to Channel 4, I would be giving it to Channel 4 every day. It's just that because Channel 4 only get this one race live a year, I haven't got the energy to switch over. I remember back when Channel 4 first had it, and they kind of got half the races live and half the races highlights. I would, for the races that were live, hop over to Channel 4 and watch it there. But now it's only one. I just haven't got the energy to do it anymore.
I realise as well that this is a very British conversation. There'll be people go, "What's the Channel 4?" But unless you get it where you are, let me know. But it's and the reason I said no hate is because I don't dislike the Sky coverage. I think they do a great job. It's just I found the Channel 4 coverage more enjoyable this weekend than I have the Sky coverage for a while, and I also felt that I felt like everybody got a fair amount of coverage. I sometimes feel like Sky like to lean certain ways. Let's put it that way. But again, I'm not hating on Sky. I pay them. I always will. Wherever the sport goes, full-time races in Formula One in the UK, I'm going to watch there. So they're going to get my money anyway. But I do enjoy their coverage. I like Ted. I love his notebook and I love the random chaos of it. But I really enjoyed Channel 4 this weekend, so I'd like that to be a more regular thing, but I know F1's expensive and it's not going to happen. And this is totally random, and I've got to do this, okay? Because we had quite a fuss in the UK recently about this. Channel 4 does not receive any public funding. It doesn't get any license fee money. It is completely funded by its activity, its commercial activity. So, your adverts and the things they do elsewhere. So it's not actually, it's a really weird, I hate the fact we have to pay a license fee in the UK because you pay a license fee to watch any kind of live TV, even though that TV channel may not get any of the money, which seems weird to me, but let's not get into that. That's a conversation for another day. There'll be people in the comments later going, well, don't pay your license fee. I don't pay mine. I haven't for 48 years because, people do, but that's up to you. That's it. That's the end of that. We're not going to get into a license fee debate today, Will. We're not doing that one. Let's see what you guys are saying in chat with your questions. Thank you to Kaori as well for your super chat. Really appreciate that. Says I only found you last year, Sean, but you've got me for the long haul. Always look forward to your content and happy when I catch a live stream here in South Florida. Thank you so much for your support, Kaori. Really appreciate the super chat as well. And it's been a year, but I'll still say welcome to the channel. Good to have you here. I'm not going anywhere unless everyone stops watching, and then I'll have to go somewhere else. But got to pay the bills and all of that business. But yeah, welcome. Good to have you here. And there was a question from a super chat that I read, wasn't the Will, that we were going to come back to. From Greg, given today, what chance McLaren finishes ahead of Aston Martin in the constructors by the end of the season? So McLaren 59 points, Aston Martin 181.
I think it's a long shot. The difference that McLaren have, and I'll be perfectly blunt with this, is they have two cars while Aston only have one. So yeah, I mean we are only halfway through the season, so realistically it's doable. But it would require Aston to properly fall off and McLaren to devote all of their resources to 2023, which, if I'm honest, isn't a great long-term strategy. So I can see the benefits of doing it, but I don't fully understand them. So I think if McLaren play their cards right and begin to focus on 2024 at the right time, they won't manage it. It's only if they decide to devote all their resources into the end of this year and maybe try to pick up a few victories at the end of the year with a car that's been heavily upgraded, but won't really help them in the long run. That I don't know. That's another thing I can't seem to be saying quite a lot today. But yeah, I think it's not going to be easy for them if they do try to manage it.
That comes a lot when you get older, where you just sort of randomly go, oh, I don't know. It's just random noises as you stand up, not just like, but also your body starts to click and all sorts.
I'm doing that already.
Weird.
I'm doing that already at 23. Don't worry.
And I just to sort of Greg's question, just on the specifics of what Greg said, he says, given today, what chance McLaren for his head of Aston? If McLaren can maintain this form and are consistently fighting for podiums and can fend off Aston Martin, they've got a great chance of beating Aston in the constructors. The problem is it's whether they can do that. Kind of what we were saying, when do you start focusing on next year's car? I think they were saying on Channel 4 coverage, it might have been Sky in practice, but essentially it's expected that the next big update package that comes for these teams is going to be the last one. So if this has worked for McLaren and they are great in Hungary and great in Spa and great in Zandvoort, then the next update might help them out big time. But after that, we're not going to see an awful lot. I hope I'm making a point here, which I'm probably not, but you know me. I like to have a good waffle and end up in a weird place. But I think based on this weekend, if they were to do this every weekend, yes, they absolutely can. Do I think they will? No. I think they've got a great shot now at being P5, which, I mean, they are P5, but they've got to fend off Alpine, who have been pretty solid at times as well. But I think if you'd have offered McLaren P5 in the championship at the end of the season, 6 races ago, I think they'd have been very content with that, given the step forward Aston Martin has taken, Ferrari being sometimes good, sometimes bad, Mercedes improving, and Red Bull just being dominant. I think that'll be okay for them. But yeah, thank you to Nick as well for your super chat. Says, can we discuss the 2024 calendar? That's a great question. Will France and Germany ever get a Grand Prix again? And no, Monaco is not France. Austria is not Germany. Thank you for your super chat and your support, Nick. Yes, that's a good point. We'll do that, actually. Yes, the calendar. We won't go on too much about it, but that is the 2024 calendar on your screen now. We start in Bahrain. First race, Saturday, the 2nd of March. That's going to take some getting used to. Saudi Arabia on Saturday, the 9th of March, a week later, due to Ramadan. So they've sort of shuffled things around there to respect that. I say it's not a holiday, is it? It's a religious... Yeah, to respect Ramadan. Let's not get into that. Australia on my birthday on the 24th of March. Whoop. That's going to be great. So the reaction there could be me. I was going to say could be me drunk, but I think there's some questions to ask if I'm drunk for the Australian Grand Prix race reaction at 9 o'clock in the morning. There might be a few questions to be asking Sean, whether he needs to go and see somebody. But yeah, anyway. And then Japan, the 4th race of the season, Will. That's where we'll start, mate. Yeah, right, fine. It's going to be weird having a race on a Saturday, but we've got Las Vegas later this year on a Saturday, so we'll be almost used to it by then. But Japan, up to the 4th race of the season. That's going to be, for long-term F1 fans, a bit of a shift, isn't it? That's quite a difference.
It is, and I guess it's kind of part of their aim to go for this greener, more regionalized calendar. It's so regionalized, in fact, that they've put Canada in between Monaco and Spain. So,
Was that sarcasm? Sorry, was that sarcasm I caught there, Will?
Sorry, do you want me to say it again? Just a little bit more emphasis on the sarcastic bits. I wasn't sure if I quite got that. Yeah, I assume there's some sort of contractual element to that, but it makes zero sense to me.
A weather concern as well. There's some thought from some that moving Miami to the end of May or into early June would be too hot, and Canada is concerned it'll be too cold in early May. So I'm if there's a way they could shift that to the middle somewhere,
or just put Canada around the Las Vegas area, or would they be too cold then as well? I don't know what it is. My geography was
winter, isn't it?
never great.
Winter in Canada is not a great idea.
No, it isn't. It isn't. But yeah, I don't see how shifting it back only 2 or 3 weeks will have a massive impact on it personally. But yeah, just putting it there just makes very little sense.
They like that June date as well, don't they? So it could be contractual.
It could be. The rest of it looks all right. I'm sort of having a look to see if anything else sticks out in particular. Not really. Azerbaijan being the end of the European season is also fun. And right after Italy as well is nice. Then straight off to Singapore a week later. That's going to be a fun one for the mechanics.
It's a month then to Kota though. We've got the summer break and then we've got a few races and a month off again.
That's odd. And given Singapore is one of those ones that really knackers both drivers and teams, it's the end of a triple header. That's going to be rough, really, really rough for everyone.
There's no official word either from what I've seen on that month's gap, but some people did sort of theorize that maybe what's happened is Japan's move to earlier in the season was quite late, and maybe Singapore and the USA weren't willing to move, which would sort of make sense, because then I would have thought Italy, and then 2 weeks later Azerbaijan, then 2 weeks later Singapore and Japan, then maybe the US gets pushed back a little bit or something like that. Maybe that's part of the reason for it. It is quite weird. I did one about logistics, but we've gone from Singapore to somewhere else much quicker than 4 weeks before, so I'm not necessarily thinking logistical, but it's a bit, it feels that part of the calendar feels a little bit, I'm going to say clunky. It feels a little bit, unless, okay, this is an idea, okay, this is just another theory. Unless they're just thinking, with, like we had with Imola this year being cancelled, and what we had with races being, I know the pandemic's not having an impact anymore on the race calendar, but you know, if a race needs to be postponed, maybe leaving a space there allows them to reschedule things, maybe gives them some leeway. I don't know, but I would have thought if you've got a 4-week gap between Singapore and the USA, push Singapore back a week, so you've not got Azerbaijan and Singapore back to back, and not quite a big gap. I mean, they have then got 2 triple headers, to be fair, so whether they're thinking a mini break before 2 straight triple headers could actually be that as well. Possibly USA, Mexico, Brazil, week off, Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. I've not got much more to add on that. Yeah, no, I'm with you on it, to be honest, Sean.
How many of those are sprints? Says Nick. Don't ask.
We don't know yet, I don't think.
At least 6. If it was 6 this year, then I'd be surprised if it's not 6 next year. On sprints, I have a feeling, and I by the way, I don't mind if they've turned around and someone says F1 have actually said that there won't ever be any more than 6. They also said once upon a time 20 was the ceiling for races, so we can't always believe that. But I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to end up with half the calendar being sprints every other weekend. I don't know why. I promise you, I have no information whatsoever to back that up. It's just a gut feeling that we're going to end up with a sprint every other weekend to keep it interesting, because they seem to think that young people have a lesser attention span for some reason, which is weird. And you might argue, well, you're younger than me. You're 14 years younger than me. You probably say, yes, we do. But I know my brother-in-law, he'll sit and watch a gaming stream for 5-6 hours non-stop. So I don't think that the attention span is an issue for young people. I find it a little bit of a patronising argument from some people, but that's just me. I'm not falling out with people anymore. I'm not doing it. I did that yesterday. You caught the stream yesterday. Well, it all got a bit heated about an hour and 25 minutes in. Sean lost his shit.
I'll go back and
love your space.
Look at that now. I won't get into the attention thing then. Well, yeah, I don't think we'll get to sprints every other race next season. I can see that in a couple of years' time, though, that being their kind of end goal. But I want them to kind of finalize their plan for it before they roll it out on such a huge scale. For anyone who's not heard my opinions on sprints before, I actually don't mind them, just because I would prefer having an extra race and qualifying session to FP2 and FP3. Even if it's even if it's a dull sprint, we get dull F1 races sometimes. Look at the Austria sprint, for example. We can get good sprints. It just needs to be done at the right circuits. And in my opinion, I would just make them a little bit longer, but I know they won't do that. Then there's kind of not. There's no point calling a sprint at that point. But yeah, I think we'll probably get 6. They might raise it to like 8 or 9 if they want to keep sort of going on this kind of ladder of having more sprints every year. But as you said, at least 6, and I just hope they pick the right circuits for it. I kind of think it needs to be the short circuits, excluding Monaco.
Yeah, Austria, places like that.
Yeah,
Brazil.
Austria will be one, Brazil will be one. The place where we can get a lot of laps in, and there's lots more opportunities to overtake, because that's what I think makes these Austria sprints a lot better, is the sense that you end up getting more DRS zones over the course of the race. I don't know why they're doing it at Spa, for instance, because realistically, where are you going to overtake at Spa at the end of the Kemmel Straight? How many laps are we going to get for that Spa sprint? Not many. So that's not many opportunities to overtake, and it's going to be a bit of a dull one, unfortunately. I theorize there, but if you pick races like Austria, where you get a lot more laps, that's a lot more opportunities to overtake, and Austria is a very good circuit in the sense that you can overtake at turn 4. You can definitely do it at turn 3, maybe at turn 1. If you're Esteban Ocon, you can overtake anywhere because you can go wherever you like on the circuit. But yeah, it's I think an inevitability now that we'll get a lot more sprints. I don't think they'll take over every single weekend. I don't see it being at that point, but it's the way that Formula One have decided to go. As I said, I'm not completely against it, but it just needs a little bit more tweaking.
So, kind of last part of our calendar conversation then. I like that. A bit more alliteration for you. Calendar conversation. Lot of talk about 24 being too many. I've seen people in chat saying it's too many. My stance on this, as an incredibly selfish F1 fan who hasn't got to travel the world to watch it, who just makes content on it every weekend, I take 52 weeks a year with an F1 race quite happily. I understand the argument of, too much of a good thing, in air quotes. Some might argue it's not a good thing at the moment, but I disagree. I think it is. So I would happily take a race every weekend. But, from a team perspective, maybe 24 is too much, Maybe we are getting to a stage where you need two full-time crews, which is going to get expensive, and split it up a little bit. But from a viewer's perspective, and this is I know this isn't the answer to everything, and I understand that people get annoyed when people say this to them, and I don't mean it to come across as condescending or anything like that, but if they have 24 races a year and you think that's too much, you don't have to watch them all, which I know kind of sucks because you want to watch the whole season, but I know people who pick and choose their races. Some people who only watch, for some reason, Monaco and the British Grand Prix every year, and might catch the season opener and the end of the season. I don't watch them all, but I don't mind 24. I honestly think 20 is the sweet spot for, if you take into account all the traveling and how much it costs to go around the world, and the human cost, as people will point out, crew members and drivers and the team and all that getting exhausted. 20 feels like a nice spot. It's also good for maths because it's nice and easy to work out over the course of a season, which is a really rubbish excuse, but I don't mind 20. The only thing I hate about 24, and I hope you get what I mean here when I say this, is it's not 25. I feel like 25, surely. If you're going to stop somewhere, stop at 25. It just makes more sense. Not 24, not 26, 25. Like, not 19, not 21, 20. It's like when you turn the TV, the volume up on your TV. You don't stop at 11. You're like 10 or 12. Or you don't stop at 14, it's 15. You don't then go to say, leave me alone, Will. All right, I'm cracking, okay? It's just, that's what I would say. 25, I think should be, that's absolute ceiling. But I'd take one a week because I'm just a loser like that. Each to their own, though. What do you think? Well, is it too many? Not enough?
I mean, as a content creator who,
Does that as well, yeah.
loses this weekend to it, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know. I don't know whether you get this, Sean, but as time goes on, and we're in a very privileged position, to be fair, having the fan bases that we have, and I don't want to take away from any of that, but when I'm spending, it's become more of a thing now. I've got a full-time job on top of YouTube, but when I'm spending my entire weekend, which are usually my 2 days off, to sit and make content, and then there's kind of that stress of getting it out straight after the race is finished. Otherwise, I just get ripped to shreds by my comment section for being an hour late rather than half an hour late to getting a race review out. It does take away from the actual experience of watching the race. I know I'm not the only content creator that has that opinion, and it's the reason why people don't always do race reviews, or it's the reason why I wasn't ever going to do race reviews when I first set out to make YouTube videos, and that's obviously changed. It's become my staple now, but so from a workload perspective, I'm kind of sat looking at 24 races and thinking, oh, that's a lot of triple headers where I'm not having weekends. But equally, I enjoy Formula One, and the more racing, the better. So and statistically, the more races we have, the more good tracks we can keep on the calendar. It doesn't, one of the things I'm most glad about to see that in that 2024 calendar is we still have Belgium. And we still have, the likes of Italy or Great Britain, that both circuits that, if you go back a few years, we were worried we would lose from the calendar. So, we get to keep circuits like that on the schedule while getting to go to places like Vegas or some of the new tracks that have come in that are very good, like Azerbaijan, for example, or you can't call Singapore a new circuit anymore, but that I feel has become quite quickly quite an iconic one on the calendar. So it's a double-edged sword really from my perspective, but I appreciate that I haven't got the I guess neither of us have the perspective of your average fan that doesn't make money off of the off of the Formula One season.
Well, I do from pre-YouTube. But even then, I used to be like, oh, why can't it be a race this weekend? Do you know what I mean? So I think the winters were longer back then. Oh, they were so long without F1, finishing in October and not back till end of March. It was like, oh my God. But yeah, no, I think, again, from a content creator's perspective, it's great next year. There's only February that doesn't have some sort of meaningful F1 running. Sorry, January. February FP1 will be taking place, and FP1 will be taking place on the Friday the 28th, I think it'll be, or 29th. Is it a leap year? Hang on, let me just check.
And you got testing as well.
Yep, so you've got, I think the testing is the weekend before on the 24th to 25th, I think I read. And then you've got the 29th. I'm looking at the wrong month. That's the wrong year, Sean, you donut. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment. But yeah, there's because obviously the practice will be shuffled forward a day because the race is on the Saturday, so the practice will be Thursday, which is Thursday the 29th of February. So there's only January that doesn't have some sort of F1 running in because Abu Dhabi and Qatar are in December. So every month has got something F1 in it, even if it is only practice, it's still something, and testing as well. So just on the other point that was asked as well there, on Germany and France, I'd like to see Germany back. I'm not really fussed about Paul Ricard coming back either way. But I think it kind of leads into a nice idea of having some races on rotation. So there's some talk that Zandvoort and Spa will share that slot on the calendar in the future, because Kyalami was penciled in, if you like, to return this year, but then there were some issues getting that deal done, and that's now not going to be on the calendar until any earlier than 2025, and that would have taken Spa's place on the calendar because they want to make it a truly world championship and get a race in Africa, which is fair enough. And I'd like to see Kyalami back as well. That was the first ever race I watched in 1992, so that'd be quite a moment. But there was some talk about Spa and Zandvoort alternating year by year in that slot after the summer break, which I think is a good idea. And if we could do that with places like Hockenheim, or as I would prefer, the Nürburgring GP layout, I'd love to see that. That'd be fantastic. Maybe alternating there with some maybe Imola, because we've got a race at Monza, haven't we? So 2 races in Italy. Maybe one year we have Imola and Monza. Another year we have, I don't know, Nürburgring and Monza. And then another year, if China can't do every year or whatever, just as an example, then maybe you could have China one year and Sepang, yes please, the following year. Just a few tracks on rotation to kind of, if we've got these long seasons with 24 races, if it's the same 24 races, you could see why people might be like, oh, we're there again. But, mix it up, throw a few interesting ones in. Maybe if Spain in the future have more financial issues and they can't host at Barcelona every year, then maybe Portimao and Barcelona could swap around every year. Just having that little option there would be nice. So, and I miss Sepang as well, Jamie. I really miss Sepang. Oh, I really do. Thank you to AC, says, who should replace De Vries at AlphaTauri post-summer break? Thank you for your membership. 30 months, AC. Feels like only yesterday you joined as a member, mate. It's been a long journey. Thank you for your support. I'll let you have that one then, Will, because I answered that yesterday. Who should replace De Vries at AlphaTauri post-summer break? My summary, if you're interested, Will, was just because AC put it in for my channel.
I'm not actually.
Was that I could see if Daniel Ricciardo is as quick in a simulator as they're saying, and he is good in the tyre tests that he's doing, and they feel they need to assess somebody if Perez continues to struggle, then putting Daniel Ricciardo in that car at AlphaTauri and giving him half a season, then assessing him for next year if Perez keeps struggling, like I say, isn't a bad idea. But they do. Helmut Marko does like Liam Lawson, doesn't he? I do as well, to be fair. Not just Helmut Marko. He's a good lad.
Yeah, for me, it's between Ricciardo and Lawson. And my head says Lawson and my heart says Ricciardo. I'd love to see Danny Rick back. And there is a quote from Helmut Marko after the race, which said, I'm trying to remember it because I saw it on Twitter. Basically, we'll look at the tyre test and then we'll have a conversation about it. And that this was in regards to De Vries and Ricciardo. But
that sounds ominous, doesn't it? Immediately.
But they're all saying if they drop De Vries in the summer break, they will drop him just before his home Grand Prix, which, to be fair, is a very Red Bull thing to do, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah, McLaren sacked Magnussen on his birthday. So, there you go.
Yeah. Jeez. I'd love to see both drivers in there. I'd love to see Ricciardo more, even if you may argue he doesn't deserve it after his McLaren spell. But I think Ricciardo is a sensible option because if he has got it back, you put him in, and like you said, he does well in the AlphaTauri. Perez still can't get his dominant Red Bull into Q2. Doesn't matter how well he's doing in the races. As soon as the other teams start to catch up, he will not be able to go from P18 to P2 like he has been, or get into the points. As soon as that Red Bull advantage decreases, and we get to see, I think, the losses from that wind tunnel time reduction after the whole cost cap palaver last year, the rest of the field will catch up, and that's going to put Perez really in hot water because his quality pace will get even worse than it currently is. And then his race pace will suffer because it will be much harder to get through the field because those cars will be quicker or closer to the Red Bull's pace. So, yeah, if Perez can't get out of his little slump at the moment, you need to start looking at the other options before it's too late.
I think what is important to say as well is that Red Bull are in quite a nice position. They've got some very good options if they do feel they need to make a change. Liam Lawson doing a cracking job in Super Formula. I don't know what the super license situation is for their juniors, but Iwasa is looking impressive in F2. And then you've got Ricciardo sat there waiting in the wings, doing a decent job in a simulator, and we'll see what he does in the tyre test. So they've got options. And it would be harsh to drop De Vries before his home race, but at the same time, if De Vries was performing, then he wouldn't be dropped before his home race. So it kind of goes both ways, doesn't it, really? But that's the maybe harsh answer for people. If you're a De Vries fan, I'm sorry. But and just on De Vries, actually, I've got to say just on today, not awful. You'll laugh, Will. I know you will. But, he was only 1.9 seconds off his teammate come the end of the race. They were both last anyway. He's not a million miles away. But I
The
don't
safety
think
car would have helped that though.
Yeah, I don't think Helmut Marko. My point is, I don't think Helmut Marko's sitting and looking at 16th and 17th for either driver and going, "Oh, that was a good weekend." But I do wonder, just on AlphaTauri, I was thinking about this before I went live. They've got 2 points so far. They are moving next year. There's going to be a lot of they're staying in Faenza, but a lot of the operations are moving to Bicester to be nearer to Red Bull. And they're going to work a lot more closely. They're going to move their car to their philosophy, a bit more close to the Red Bull philosophy, maybe a closer relationship than they have in the last few years with Red Bull. Because they kind of had this little thing, didn't they, where AlphaTauri tried to sort of, they were still part of Red Bull, but sort of tried to pull themselves away a little bit. And they're going to go back now to being very much the B team.
Funny that.
So I just wonder if it sounds, from a financial point of view, no, but if it is worth them just completely saying to this season, F off, we'll finish last in the constructors, and just taking all of that wind tunnel time for next year, and making a big jump forward. Because I think they were bottom when it reset as well, so they've got all that for this year. For next year, they've got the most, so they can really, really go for it for next season. So I just wonder if that's worth them doing. That's a conversation for another day, though. We've been going for quite a while, so it is that is how you pronounce Bicester, I promise. It's spelt Bicester. Welcome to England. It's spelt Bicester, but it's Bicester. It's like toaster. It's spelt Toecester, but it is actually toaster. We're cracking. We love our names over here. Anyway, yeah, let's a couple more super quick questions and then we'll round up. Can a driver impress in an Alpha? What would that look like? Sonoda is my answer to that, Justin. Yeah, all right, fine. Bit of a rough one this weekend, and it's been a bit of a not a great run of form from the team, full stop. But you know, 3 11th places and 2 10th places in the first 5 races, when your teammate was 14th, DNF, and 18th. I mean, that's impressing in an Alpha. Is my answer to that one. I'm not thinking that De Vries needs to be scoring points. I don't think they're a regular point scoring team at the moment. They're in a right mess. But that's how you impress in an AlphaTauri. Yeah, Leicester. Let's not do pronunciation. let's not do that today. And I'm sure somebody will say, actually, it's pronunciation. It's not. It's pronunciation. Sonoda has still been well clear of debris, says Sandro. Fair enough. Are you going to do more post-quali streams? Yes, I will, Sassy Lemon Cake. A lot of people enjoyed it, despite the going off the rails, which I think actually a few people said they enjoyed that as well, because it showed that I was actually just being myself and letting myself go rather than worrying about upsetting anybody. So, yeah. So, yes, I will be. We are going to call them the post-quali waffle, because that's what it ended up being. So, that will be back for Hungary and Belgium, which I really enjoyed. So, good stuff. Can Max mathematically clinch the championship at Kota, says Rocket. I haven't done the maths, mate, but I think he could have this wrapped up pretty swiftly. Where are we now? I mean, we're Hungary next? I mean, he scored more points than Aston Martin and Mercedes have as teams, which is quite... Well, and the rest of the field. He scored more points than the rest of the field on his own, which is not combined, obviously, but that's impressive. But that would be 4 races to go. I think it was Chris Medland had said that if he keeps pulling away at around 9 points per race to Perez, and it was more than that today, I think, he could have it wrapped up by Qatar. So, yes, by Kota, but probably a race earlier. But if Perez keeps struggling, Will, I mean, could we be looking at Singapore, Japan?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? And, I think that stat
do the maths,
of having more points than any other team so far is just emphasised by the fact that Perez hasn't even been securing that second place as much as he would have liked. You've had other that we've had that spot at least up for grabs, given Perez can't seem to qualify to save his life. But it's an incredibly impressive season. And, like we say at the start, I think of every stream nowadays when we touch on Red Bull for all the 5 minutes, because it's the same thing again. He's doing an amazing job. And, okay, fine, it doesn't make the sport the most interesting thing in the world at the moment, but you've got to appreciate that he is absolutely acing it right now. And yeah, what you can do, it'd be unfair to obviously do what I think suddenly Lewis Hamilton started suggesting, that you can pause development on next year's car until a certain point in the season to make it fair, which was never a problem when Mercedes were dominating. But yeah, he's just smashed it this year, and really has been, a step ahead of everyone, even his own teammate. So fair play to him, and he deserves the championship.
I was sorry to ruin the theory, Cameron, but we pronounce it Worcester sauce. Just to throw another curveball at you. It's actually Worcester. Anyway, so I've kind of and this won't be accurate because you know my maths by now, but if he was to win it in Japan, he would need to have a margin of 164 points would be. Oh no, because that's wrong. No, never mind. Japan. What I was trying to work out is Japan might be a push, because you're looking at needing to be 150, 160, 170 points clear. But then he is he's 99 points clear now. So, I mean, that's not impossible. But I think Qatar, probably. There you go. Scott says a Japan wrap-up would be a 177-point lead, which is only 7. Well, yeah, actually, no, it's doable, isn't it? It is doable by Japan, but there you go. We'll see. We shall see. He's going to win early. And I called it about 6 races ago, but I'll call it again today for anyone who's unsure. I think he's got the championship, and I think Red Bull might win the constructors. I feel a little bit bold going with that one, but I think they might. One last question, and then we're going to wrap up for today because I'm getting a bit warm again. Do you think he'll win them all, Will? Quickly between now and the end of the season?
No, I think he's got to have an engine failure at some point, right? That's what I keep telling myself. If he does, then wow, it's hats off to both him and to Red Bull for building such a good car. But it would be a real stretch for him to win every single race without there being a single issue either on his part or on strategy's part, or just on reliability. So I wouldn't surprise me if he did, but I think it'd be a real push if he managed to put it off.
I've not done the math, so I'm going to take Zach at his word here. But he says even if Checo won every race, sprint and fastest lap, if Max came second in all events, he'd still win the championship by 7 points.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah. Any questions? Let's see if there's anything related to the race, and then we are going to wrap up because I didn't realise we were going quite so long. Sorry, it's just lovely talking to you, Will. I can't help it, mate. It's I said it yesterday, and a few people laughed at me, but it's the laddie bands.
The laddie bands.
What? I don't know. I just said it yesterday, randomly. I was like, what a weird time to say that for the first time. I did talk on Perez yesterday, so I'll not do that today. I'm sure it'll crop up. I've answered that one. No more super chats in, is there? No. Or are there? Do you think Max will win 18 in a row, doubling Vettel's 9 in a row record a decade ago? Is he going to break 9 in a row? It says CPB1. Got it right today. I think he can win 9 in a row. I'm a bit with Will. I don't think he's going to win all of them, but I think he can win 9 in a row. But he only needs 3 more, doesn't he? And you'd assume, unless there's a bit of chaos, that he's probably going to do the next 2. So yeah, that's my view on that one. Clancy says we used to talk about Lewis having more points than the other teams combined. Nothing new, really. Yeah, absolutely. We've had domination before. I said it yesterday. Said it to somebody in the comments of another video. It reminds me of 2004 with Schumacher. 12 wins for the opening 13 races. Disappeared. That's kind of it. I'll have to do the maths on that one, Rocket. I'm not sure what that one would be. And thought on the possibility that Max might win the championship on a sprint race. Doesn't bother me. The idea used to bother me, but it's part of this year. It doesn't. I think if it was a really close championship and the sprint was the final race of the year and there's a few points in it, I think I'd be a bit more like, I don't like that done on a Saturday. But when you've got a driver dominating, if they win it in a sprint, then it doesn't really make it. It kind of, with respect to Verstappen and his fans, and I do genuinely mean with respect. It's sort of. It's when, not if, isn't it? So if he wins it in a sprint or he wins it with the fastest lap or he wins it on a Sunday, it doesn't really make any odds now, does it? We know he's going to do it. clip that for the end of the season when Sergio Perez is a world champion and I look a fool, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes back to a few years ago when we were talking about, do we give points for pole position, and then how would it feel if the championship was won in qualifying, which you can see in F2. I don't think it's ever happened, but I know there was a situation where it could have happened. I think it was De Vries's win, maybe Russell's. I can't remember where he needed 4 points. So had he got pole position, then he would have secured the championship. No, he didn't. Whoever it was, they didn't in that case. But that does take the edge off it. But equally, I think if we are in that sort of situation, 9 times out of 10, it won't have been the most closely fought out championship. So yeah, I think as long as you avoid having a sprint in the final race of the year at Abu Dhabi, then I'm not fussed.
Yeah. And just very quickly, somebody, where are you? You've gone. There you go. Scott says, what sprints are left? We've got Belgium with a sprint, which I'm not overly keen on, but Spa as a sprint, and then it's back-to-back Qatar and Kota, then a week without a sprint, and then it's Brazil again, I believe, isn't it, Will? Is that right? Belgium? No, that's too many.
Hang on, we've had
right.
two.
We've had two. Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
Belgium,
we've had
Qatar,
two.
USA, and Brazil. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so there you go. That's where they are. I'm not sure about the idea of 3 sprints in 4 races, but they obviously wanted one for one of the US races, didn't they? And there's probably, let's face it, a bit like Abu Dhabi demanding the end of the season, Qatar probably demanded a sprint as well. So, and Brazil works brilliantly as a sprint. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for your super chat, Cameron. Really appreciate that one, mate. With a sticker, super sticker. Thank you very much for that one. But we're going to wrap it up there today because I've kept Will for too long, and I will just keep going because I just love talking about Formula One. So, and he's got a life. The swine. He's got to go to work and everything. I know, it's shocking. But thank you very much, Will. Great stuff, mate. And have a fantastic time in Hungary and Belgium. I won't be swearing about you sat here. And hopefully the weather's good. And hopefully you've got some good racing to enjoy as well.
Yeah, pleasure. I'll miss the Laddie Bants for the next couple of weeks.
Laddie Bants? I'm making a channel. I'm going to make a Laddie Bants channel. Why not?
That's our group channel, just Laddie Bants.
Laddie Bants. Oh, no. Yeah, thank you very much, mate. And I'm sure I'll talk to you at some point soon. Thank you to Will. Thank you to you guys as well for tuning in. Fantastic stuff this weekend. Thank you for yesterday as well. Always great to have a good old post-quali waffle and a post-race waffle. I will be back with something this week. My partner's off this week, so I might take some time away and make the effort. But I will try and get something out. I'd like to do a midweek stream at some point as well, possibly this week. So we'll go from there. But definitely back, of course, for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Penultimate race for the summer break. There'll be the preview, the post-quali waffle, and the race reaction. We'll do the same again for Spa the following week. And then it's a summer break, which is a disgrace. But it's a summer break before a rather mental end to the season with quite a few races in quite few weeks is how we'll put that one. Don't forget to leave a like before you go. 443 still here, 220 likes. If we can get another 30 on there to get it to 250, that'd be absolutely fantastic. And don't forget to subscribe as well, so you don't miss out on any future content. And thank you for your super chats tonight. Very generous. I appreciate that and the support. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.